too much.
Mellow yellow.
Tweak your white.
Yes, I will tweak my
white balance or your temperature.
What is the late breaking news that Liz is referring to?
Balance or your temperature.
I feel like my temperature. What is the late breaking news that Liz is referring to?
Balance
That's
or
me.
your
The Challenger crash.
temperature.
I feel like there we go.
That's quite interesting. That was repeating itself.
It was for some strange reason. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Oh, it's a little hot in here.
Woo! Actually, you look like Goldfinger. Well, actually, more like the girl that he painted in gold.
Oh, I heard about that, Liz. They found it. They said that a business jet was missing between Vegas and New Mexico. Wait a minute, it says and Mexico. I thought they said New Mexico. Okay, and Steph has just finished with her last patient, so she's going to be joining us in progress. A Bombardier Challenger 600 has crashed between Las Vegas and Mexico, killing 14 on board. Looks like it was inverted when it hit the ground to me.
Ouch.
There's a picture of it there. I don't know if you see that from Liz.
I shall find the link. Oh, God. Oh, ouch. Well, actually, I'm looking at the fin. I don't think it was. I think it was the right way out, but it's the way it's burnt out.
Okay.
It looks like it was.
Like it was upside down.
Blocker detected. Please consider reading this notice. No. No, I think it's just burned to the ground, which kind of looks a bit upside downish. But that fin, look, it's T-tail. What is it? Oh, it's a Challenger, Bombardier Challenger. Okay. I don't really know what these airplanes look like.
It just looks like basically an RJ.
Yeah, it looks like a Canadair.
Just a shorter RJ.
It's so sad that I don't even know what an RJ or a Canadair looks like. I know they're little. So when someone says give way to the RJ, I just look for a little airplane.
Nick, what I really want to know is why breaking a Bombardier Challenger 600 crash between Vegas and I scroll down. Never do this exercise before as an advertising. I scroll down a little bit more, and it says you may like men. You don't need Viagra if you do this once a day, with a picture of a very attractive young lady.
Yeah,
and then below that, I have sexy Asian women in Smyrna. Why? Does that have to do anything with?
Obviously, you've been searching for sexy Asian women.
Really? These aren't random. These are targeted ads because they know just what you like.
They know what you want.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
they know what you're looking for.
Well, but in between the two, they have these two vegetables will kill your belly fat overnight.
There you see.
Right.
See, I mean, that's all true. In between, yeah.
If it's on the internet, it's got to be true.
Yeah,
it absolutely has to be
overnight. True. All that belly fat gone
overnight.
That's it.
It's got to be true. It's true. It's true. All right.
There. Oh God! Now I've got to. Damn it!
What's wrong? What's wrong?
I don't remember who suggested the plain tail. Quick.
Bob.
Bob who?
Yeah, just Bob.
Bob. Bob.
Just Bob. Joe.
No. I know who it was. I've just got to find him.
Wonder if
there you go. Eric Horschman. Eric Horschman from California.
Why am I doing that? I'm stupid.
So I need to remember to thank him. He comes from San Ramon. How very nice.
Is there any new information regarding, of course, the Aviation Herald doesn't, no, they hardly ever cover corporate aircraft. Sorry.
I know how you feel.
Doubly so.
Su-95. Any new updates on that?
Su-95. I thought it was 100.
Well, it says, according to the Aviation Herald, it's an Su-95.
Okay.
Well, no, you know what? Then it says an Su-100-95. Okay, a Super 100-95. Okay. Yeah, I don't. Unless this. Well, I'll talk about it on the show. Interestingly, that. Well, never mind.
We do mind though.
Yeah. Never mind. Okay. I have the coffee fund data ready. Let me get to the sound playing app. Oh.
That's better.
Yeah, I had to turn up the volume on the EFB.
So, Jeff, you sound to tell me a little about that hotel. Where is it located? Have we moved?
Just about. It's almost due north of the whatever the old one was
the
called.
blue. Yeah,
the Warwick. About probably maybe 10 blocks north.
Oh no, really?
Uh-huh.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's not. It's probably maybe 5 blocks north of Chestnut Market and Chestnut. It's not
terrible.
No, it's not really. I mean, from what I can tell, it's not bad as far as location is concerned. But it's just it's not as nice as the Warwick, obviously. How's that color, Nick? Is it better?
Yep.
Am I not as jaundiced?
Yep. No, you look just a bit suntanned now.
All right. Yeah.
But I think you need to have a word with the makeup girl.
Try to get some color in my skin.
It looks like he's been on tanning beds.
Wow.
Have I?
Yeah.
Yellow
tanning beds.
Yellow tanning bed, a specialty. I don't know. That's going to have to just do it. Okay. Let me look at the Evernote folder and see if there's enough there for me to stumble through it. Of course, Radio Roger will be doing our real introduction, but for the video here will just be me.
Okay, so.
And we have the audio from your meetup, Captain Nick.
Oh, thank you.
And
it wasn't very long, which is great.
Okay. And then let's see, did she fix the news? It took out that. Yeah, good. Good.
Do you read this, Mr. Schuan? I'm Schuan from.
Oh, sorry. I mean,
what is that? Do you have a young child in your studio?
It's a young Irish girl about to tell me how to pronounce the 32 counties of Ireland.
Do you want us to wait for that to happen?
No.
Or? Okay.
No, I'm just going to kill that now.
Okay,
she was going to take some, if she did it in alphabetical order, it was going to take an age for her to get to Wicklow. But I just wanted to confirm my pronunciation of that.
Ah, okay.
But I'm pretty sure it's Wicklow, even though it's spelled W-I-C-H for some reason.
Yeah, CH can be a k sound as well.
Yeah.
A k sound.
A kicking k.
Right. If Steph was on with us, she could give us the sound.
Yeah.
And she could also do it in French.
Yeah. So does a hiccup sound different in French?
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Hiccup.
Oui, oui.
Wee.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Always something else. Always something else to do.
Always something there to remind me.
Definitely no,
Bum,
definitely no one
bum,
on time
bum.
tonight because I can see the clock over Jeff's left shoulder.
Yeah.
5:19. 5:12.
Oh, I should have
5:14.
changed the clock. Fooled everybody.
Yeah,
I have to get the recorders set up, so that's
Mine's
what I'm
going.
doing.
Mine's already on.
All right. Well, look at you.
Yeah, we're the
I'm here
boy.
with bells and whistles
Okay.
And facial hair.
and facial hair.
Yeah, like when was the last time you flew?
Finished up on Tuesday night.
So about a week ago. That's a
Yeah,
pretty good
about
beard for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let it go.
Yeah.
I don't like shaving on my days off because I want to look like Nick. I'm a wannabe.
There you go. You could have put some white stuff on it to get like me.
Well, yeah, if I let it grow long enough, I'll look just like you.
Hey, so who's Jen's son asked if she was watching a Colonel Sanders lookalike contest.
Oh, yes.
So I was assuming that he was talking about you, Captain Nick, but maybe me. Is that the
No,
one?
I think it's definitely you.
Yeah,
Really?
definitely you.
Well, yeah, you see, Colonel Sanders got a little goatee.
Yeah, I don't.
And, yeah, I know, but you've got the moustache is perfect.
Oh, okay.
And I suspect the microphone was probably where your goatee would be.
Ah,
yeah. There you go.
need to get a white suit and some Colonel Sanders. Never mind.
And lots of dead chickens.
Input. X18, XR18. Okay, now to get the proper routings, I'm number 3. The HOA is number 910. Sorry. Bear with me here. Bless you.
Oh, excuse
God
me.
bless you.
Sorry, I didn't get to my button as quickly as I thought.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
All right, and then the iPad is stereo input. $11.12. So I got to do this every ding dang time.
Can't you memorize it?
It doesn't remember it. And let's see, where is the MacBook audio? Right here. And that is stereo 1314. Okay, we'll record ARM.
We're going green. We're going green. We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green.
Okay. Getting good signal. We're going green. We're going green.
We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green.
We love you, Captain Jeff.
I do that I play that a couple times a day thinking
just to cheer yourself
there are people that
yeah.
Yes.
I'm actually seeing Rob again at the end of this.
Oh, are you?
Yes, I am. I shall tell him how much you've enjoyed.
Yeah, please tell him.
I will.
He probably knows, but just in case. Okay, so I'm going to hit the. Oh, how come I can't find the? Why can I not find? Oh no. It's one of the problems when I use my big screen at home and I connect this to it, and then I shut everything down, and now it still thinks it's being on the big screen, and so I can't find parts of the window to
bother.
Like hit the record button. So let me see. Let me try to do this. Go full screen. Oh, there it is. Got it. Yay. Okay, record on. There we go. I'm recording. So let's do a clapboard thing. So we're going to say APG 374 3 2 1. Wow, you guys must have been at the exact time. There's only one mark.
Well, it all sounded completely random to me.
Yeah, it sounded like 3 different sounds to me.
Oh, but your 2 sounded like a single.
All right, there you go.
Wow, that's cool.
Wow. Well, I waited that 100th of a millisecond to make sure we had the time, the speed of sound. That's what I want to say. I was going to say it's the light speed of sound, but that's not correct. It's the speed of sound, accounting for Nick's distance from us. I'm really just pulling.
Sounds like a bunch of BS to me.
It's a bunch of BS. Just got lucky.
Okay. Oh. All right. So Steph sent me a glimpse. I can kind of keep track of where she is. Very good. Thanks, Steph. If you're listening, I'm sure she is. Okay. Oh, and my son is having some issues with people breaking into his car. Not while he's in it, though. Overnight.
Oh,
parked in his apartment complex.
Horrible.
Oh, no.
Shoot. Okay. And it's his birthday on Thursday. Happy birthday week. It's the second time that somebody's broken into his Jeep. Used to be my Jeep.
Is it a hard top or soft top?
Soft top.
Well,
first time they just unzipped it and didn't really get anything. There's nothing to steal. And this time, apparently, they didn't want to unzip it. They sliced the window open. Okay. Well,
that's like the number one crime I hate. It's because people just don't respect other people's property.
Nope. All right. Shall we? 20 after, we're going to say.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 374.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 422 in the Philadelphia Hotel. Now, I'll just this will be something that Roger does anyway. So it was recorded on the 6th of May, 2019. Philadelphia 201 Hotel, to be exact. In today's show, the latest aviation news and commentary, your feedback, and this week's Plain Tale, the Court of Public Opinion. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright lock positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 374 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about aviation news and cover your feedback. And joining me from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, current captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Oh, lovely to be with you again, Jeff. It's a little bit late at night. I may not be able to stay the whole hog, but I'm really looking forward to a good show.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it as well. And also joining us, we've missed him from his studio near the Concorde Covered Bridge in International pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier, Captain Dana.
Well, hello there, guys. How you doing? It's great to be back on the show, and looking forward to a great show as well. Although sad to see Nick if he leaves early.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe we'll just make it a
short show,
a shorter show. I don't know. We'll see. All right, excellent. So, Steph Steph will be joining us today. She is en route home from her work, and when she joins us, we'll introduce her at that time. All right, how has everybody been doing? Dana, let's start with you because it's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yeah, I was busy with that 12 out of 13 days in a row. Made it through it. Almost didn't make the last round trip, but the reroute gods had smiled kindly upon me for a change. Instead of having a 2 hour and 38-minute sit in Atlanta waiting for my last round trip all the way up to Milwaukee and back, got a reroute message that we had about 33 minutes on the ground and that we were going to Miami instead right away. So that made it possible because I was hitting the wall. I knew I was hitting the wall, so I probably would have had to fatigue out on that Milwaukee trip because I was just not going to have enough energy to stay up until midnight again. And I was starting to get to that point. So in fairness, in the fatigue assessment, I was getting there and I knew where I was going. But fortunately, they rerouted me and I didn't have to do that. So, and I don't like to do that as well as what I did this week. With all that work, had 3 things happen to me that had actually caused me to call in sick, which I almost never do. One of which is being on the airplane that much. I don't know if it contributed or whatever else, but I came down with, I wouldn't say it's a nasal infection, but certainly with all my allergy medications still affected me. So I ended up with some ear issues, pressure, I couldn't equalize. Next couple of days, my ears were all clogged up and it was giving me a slight sinus headache. So I had that going on. Being in the airplane that much, my back was hurting pretty substantially. I don't know. It's probably just from sitting in that seat for so long, for so many days. So that was bothering me. Fortunately, a little Advil with the nasal decongestant has worked, but I wasn't up to leaving on Saturday. I just couldn't do it. I didn't feel that good. So that's all that's been going on with me. I'm now recovering. I'm still a little nasally, a little bit, a little congested in the chest, I think, still. So that's what's been going on with me. Had a real good conversation about my Apple Watch this morning. It's kind of interesting. Not change the topic a little bit, but you'll see where I get there, how I get there. But my phone had cracked. My new iPhone 10 Max had cracked with not being dropped or anything. It just cracked. The screen cracked. So I don't know if they're having a problem because then I noticed this past week that my brand new iPhone 4 watch, the iWatch 4, had a hairline crack in it as well. So I had a very nice conversation with the Apple rep today who's sending me out the new phone. But as I was talking to him, he asked me for my email and I gave him my email address. And he said, well, does that mean you're a professional pilot? He says, what do you do? Do you fly Cessnas? Do you fly twin engine? I said, no, a little bigger than that. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a pilot for a major airline. Oh my God, I love airlines. I love airplanes. I've always wanted to fly. Flew Cessnas, blah, blah, went through the whole gamut. So you can imagine this guy is a techie type of guy, works at Apple in tech support and loves aviation. So guess what I told him about? A little podcast. So he is looking forward to it. His name is John, if he happens to tune in. Now, we've actually talked about him, and he was very excited to tune into our show. So,
John, you Apple technician, we
love Apple technicians.
Apple.
Yes, we're Apple people.
Every one of us has nothing but Apple products.
Here we go. Apple phone.
Everything
2 iPads, iMac.
I have all these screens in front of me. Yep. They're all Mac, iPad, MacBook Pro, MacBook Pro.
Yep.
So you know what we're saying here, John? Come on.
Yeah.
Are you picking up on it?
What we need is a little bit of this,
A little low. Yeah, some of that.
Yeah, there's some of that APG discount.
Nice little
Yeah, no
bling.
kidding. I mean, after all, every single new one of my Apple products as of recent has all officially now been replaced because my computer with the beer, my brand new iPhone, and now my iWatch all have been replaced.
Well, there you go. No excuses there.
You must be rough.
That's a paid advertisement by Apple to buy the Apple Care Plus.
I think you know what it is, Dana. I think that you're just rough on your equipment.
That's what she said.
I could go so many jokes to that one, but I'm just going to leave it alone.
Thank you.
On stage next is Nick.
Okay, Nick.
Hello, sir.
How's the back?
The back is well into the recovery phase. I would say thank you. It's no longer nearly as painful as it was. It's just stiffened up remarkably, and does so if I don't keep moving and exercising. So I'm doing that and getting some more physio. So I think the doc was probably a little pessimistic, but I don't think I'd have been fit to fly next weekend. So I think probably overall a good decision. So that's fine. The only problem now is I've got a damn cold. So if I sneeze and don't hit the cough switch in time, my apologies.
We can edit it in post.
Oh, yeah, like that happens.
Somebody, who was I having that conversation with? I think it was Mike. I might as well go into what I've been doing since the last show. On Sunday, I was invited to his son Victor Andrews' first Holy Communion. And he was saying something at the reception that he was thinking of coming up with a new drinking game for the ABG. Every time I say, I'll fix it in post, it's time to take a shot. So that was one at least. Or no, it's two.
That would be a hell of a drinking game. Yeah. The entire audience would be plastered.
And half the time I do actually fix it in post.
We know how much hard work you've done. And actually, I've got to take my hat off to you because, of course, we've done quite a few shows in a short space of time. And I guess you've been doing non-stop editing.
I have. Yeah, pretty much. I'm either flying trips or editing shows. But, you know, it's, as I mentioned many, many times, it's a labor of love. I'm not complaining. It's just don't have a lot of time to do much else. But I did, as I said, got a chance to have some good companionship and conversation and good food and good drinking and all that kind of stuff over there at Mike Carroll's, Dispatcher Mike's house.
Excellent. I saw some of the pictures. They looked really nice.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Dispatcher Mike, I do apologize myself. I just didn't feel good enough, even though I did call in sick. I didn't feel good enough to come down on Sunday. I know what was going on. I feel terrible, but I just today is the first day I felt good in the last several.
Yeah.
So
well,
my apologies.
Hope you feel better. So
I'm getting there.
Let's see what else. Last show, I'm trying to think. I should have thought about this before we started recording. When did we last record? It was on. Was it on
last Tuesday?
End of last week.
Tuesday,
because I wasn't available. It was the only day I wasn't available.
There you go.
All right.
Oh, that's why we picked it. Yes.
That's exactly why. And you're upset that I'm here today. I know. Hey guys, great being on the show. We'll see you next time.
Well, we didn't know what your schedule was, actually. You know, after the end of these shows, we kind of talk about when everybody's available on the next week, and looked on the community calendar there to see your schedule, Dana. It wasn't there, so we weren't sure when you were going to be available. So we just took a shot at this.
Well, truth be told, and it was a week early that I was planning on using some personal time, if we may say, for Nick's arrival. So I did not post my schedule. Mm-hmm. And
you know that we're still on the air, though, right?
Yeah. So.
All right.
So
a bit more editing.
Yeah, maybe not.
Fix and post. No, so no. I mean, really, he's unfortunately Nick's not going to be joining us. So I did not post that week, and I probably should just go ahead and post next week because I will be working, God willing. Okay, and that's the only trip the entire month that I'm now going to be working because I'm on vacation.
You have some vacation at the end of the month?
Yeah, I get a week vacation. That I actually indeed. This is the vacation week I tried to move to the July timeframe, and for what we all know is happening in July. But I was unsuccessful.
Move ups those move-ups do not work at all for me. Aviation, it just, I don't know, it's like a waste of time, even with my seniority.
It used to, when I was in FO, it worked all the time, worked great. But now, no. Yeah,
I guess they turned that off. If you're a captain,
just get a pair of scissors, Dana, and cut one of those stripes off, mate. Then you'll get all the bits you like.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about meetups. We still have the Aviation podcast listener meetup at Duxford on the 12th of May, which is 6 days from now.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I'm hoping Pilot Pip will be able to pick me up and fly me down there. So really looking forward to joining everybody down there. Fingers crossed that can be arranged, because if he does, it'll be from the airfield that I did my very first solo at. It'll be nice to go back there anyway, because it was a long time ago. I'd like to see what it looks like now. Anyway, even if we can't manage that, I'll certainly be down there, either sharing a ride with Adam or something. Or anyway, looking forward to it. Whatever.
Most excellent. We look forward to hearing. I'm sure you'll probably snag some audio while you're there.
I will do my best to, sir.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, did you have a recent meetup with?
Yeah, I've got a few items to cover, but that would be a great starter.
All right. Well, shall I just hit the play button?
Please do.
Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Captain Nick here, sitting in my local pub. And I've got a fine chap with me. In fact, he drives all the way around the countryside, left, right, and centre, up, down, in all directions. I've heard his itinerary for the last few days and been pretty gobsmacked. You and I fly a reasonable distance. This bloke probably does twice that, and that's in a van. Anyway, his name's Dave. He's a surveyor, a chartered surveyor. So, that's pretty special in a very unique part of the industry. But that's not important. The important thing is he's interested in aviation, and he's been listening to you since
the Airpod Geeks podcast, which was something like 65, I think, APG 65, somewhere around there.
That's brilliant, Dave. Anyway, we're trying to keep these things not too long nowadays. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and perhaps you might have a message for the old Captain Jeff.
Yeah, I think Nick's just told you everything about myself. I live in Doncaster, so I'm about to move house into the approach of Doncaster Airport. So I'm looking forward to seeing many big aircraft flying in, maybe. Love the show. Really enjoy listening to it. Hope that the Mad Dog doesn't rattle too much, and that the blue sky stays up and the ground stays down. Cheers.
That's excellent. Thanks very much, Dave. Pleasure to hear from you. And Dave and I are just having a beer, and then I have to get back to thinking of the next plane tale. You haven't got any suggestions for a plane tale, have you, Dave?
Airplane races.
Airplane races. Yeah, okay. Well, I've a few people have suggested those, particularly the old London to Australia races, those kind of things. Sound they might be fun.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'll look at that. Thanks. Anyway, lovely to meet you. Thanks very much indeed.
And you. Cheers.
And back to you in the studio, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Nick. Lovely. Thank you for all the kind
he was
words,
a very
Dave.
nice chap. Yeah, he really was. And his fascinating job is he surveys sites for his company to purchase where there are cellular masts, communication masts. So he's very specialist, but a really good business. But he certainly gets around a lot. But anyway, I had a lovely meet up with him. A few days later, I was on another podcast, not a competitor for us, really, because it was Chuck Fulton's podcast, Soaring the Sky. So all about gliding. And he obviously, he is a listener of our show. And I think I mentioned him last show. And he was just interested in my short period of gliding that I did as my sort of first step into aviation. So we chatted about that. And talking of podcasts, every little thing, I'm chatting to them. and answering a few aviation questions on Wednesday. I don't know when that'll come out though. They're quite a highfalutin, rootin' tootin' podcast. So looking forward to doing that. There's another lady pilot on at the same time, so that'll be fun. The Duxford meetup you've mentioned. I got an unexpected gift through the post a couple of days ago, and if you'll bear with me for a second, it's from Steve. It's an Irish name, so Fahy, I think is the correct pronunciation, but please forgive me if I didn't get that right, Steve. If I might just read his letter.
Sure.
To the Right Honourable Nick Anderson, many months ago I lived in Edinburgh and used to frequent Luca's air show as my all-time favourite aircraft is the Phantom F4. That makes two of us, Steve. I bought a souvenir book of the OCU, the Operational Conversion Unit that trains pilots to fly the Phantom. I bought it mainly because I felt sorry for the elderly gentleman who was selling it. That's a good enough reason. Many years later, and I am listening to the APG and Omega Tower podcasts, and I realized that you might be in the book. After a quick look, there you are on page 21, number 14, Air Defence Long Course. So on the occasion of your retirement, I would like you to have the book as a memory of where it all started.
Oh, nice.
Thanks, Steve. And it is actually, it's a lovely book, suitably battered. So it is great. And there indeed, it's got all the course photographs. So of all the students who went through the OCU, and Gilly and I were looking at it the other night, and we were having a good old trip down memory lane, laughing at all the friends we were seeing there, and some of our old bosses and all sorts of people who I recognized, and my ugly mug in there as well. So thank you very much indeed, Steve. A very thoughtful present, and it will go in pride of place on my bookshelves. Also, a thanks to Steve Prather. He took some brilliant pictures of me departing from JFK at the end of last year. And he just sent me another lovely picture, sadly not me this time, but of an airplane that I have flown relatively recently, GV Knapp. And it just so happens that I have a model of that very aircraft. There it is, GV Knapp. And I was taking it as a whitetail up to Manchester to receive this rather special paint job it has on it, where they have written a big Acme red thank you all down the fuselage. And it's one of the special paint jobs we have on our outfit. I flew it up there. That was the last time I flew it, I think. And then they painted that on, and I have the model. So really, I have a beautiful picture of it, belly side down, sort of from underneath amongst the approach lights of Atlanta, would you believe? So he obviously gets around and photographs from all sorts of places.
Wow.
I'd also like to thank everybody, because there's been a fair amount of activity on social media since I announced my early retirement, and awful lot of very kind messages. So thanks to everybody indeed for that. And then also special thanks to Eric Horschman, whose idea it was for the subject of tonight's Plain Tale. And just in case my cold gets the better of me and I don't get a chance to thank you later, Eric, very kind of you. Thanks. So it was a great suggestion. I really enjoyed doing that Plain Tale.
That's awesome. And it's your last show on the APG too, so that's kind of melancholy. Wait a minute. No, wait. Is that right? No.
Are you talking about me again when I wasn't here?
No.
What? You're just referring to me when I just showed up.
No.
I must have missed Steph's email. Or is she going to fire me by text?
Were you not part of that conversation? Oops.
Apparently not. No,
of course not. It's just the beginning for Captain Nick. I guess
the
I just have to change.
The end.
Yeah, the beginning of the end. Like every day is for all of us.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, I'm glad you're not retiring from the APG, because we need you here.
Oh, I love it. I wouldn't stop doing it for the world.
Okay, excellent. So let me take a look here, see how Steph is doing with her journey home. and looks like she's going the wrong way.
Ah,
She started way over here, and now she's up here. Apparently, the traffic on these interstate highways is not well, so she's going to have to take a circuitous route on her way home. So hopefully she'll make it by the end of the show.
Oh, that'd be
We'll
brilliant.
see. Yeah. Okay. Anything else to talk about as far as meetups or anything else? I'm Skyping, Dana says.
yeah, a little bit here and there. You are.
Okay. How about
It's
you,
not too
Nick?
bad. It's not too bad.
Okay.
Just the occasional pause.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did a test before the thing, and I was getting like 60 down and 30 up. Very
It's
good.
only intermittent, don't worry.
Okay. Well, and it might be one of those things where everybody now is finished with their whatever conference it is that they're attending here in Philadelphia, and they are getting back to their rooms and firing up Netflix and doing maybe what do they call it, FaceTime and that kind of thing. So I do want to mention main man Micah in our chat room is imploring us to mention the meetup that is going to be held at the Udvar Hazy Center at Dulles International, Washington, D.C. on the 15th of June. And let me see if I can find the exact details here. Got to scroll back up. Udvar Hazy Center on the 15th of June with the Airplane Geeks in Chantilly, Virginia, next to IAD. And then a dinner at the Red Robin that night, which I believe is a Saturday night. It usually is. We've attended that a couple of times, we APGers, and so I'm sure there are going to be some folks in the area that can also attend and perhaps represent the ABG along with the Airplane Geeks and whatever other aviation podcast might be present. So there you go. Mark that on your calendars, and I'm assuming that's in the APG community calendar. If it's not, we'll make sure it gets in there. Okay. Now, with that, I think it's time for us to talk quickly about the coffee fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Okay, let's see. Since the last show, we've had some folks wanting to help us, to support us financially. And we call that the Coffee Fund. That's why we're singing the Java Jive right now. And since the last show, using the Coffee Fund classic method, we have Randolph Ackerman. I may have mentioned him in the last one. No, maybe not. A recurring payment from Randolph. We have a payment from, or a donation, contribution from Keith Waymont. He was at the Kansas City meetup that we played last week. Brooke Spradley. She is a new listener on the south side of Atlanta. Welcome, Brooke. Thank you. And a payment or a contribution from Martin Robinson. Thank you very much, all of you, for using the Coffee Fund Classic method. Also, we have Patreon, and you can become a patron of the show. And since the last episode, we have a new producer. His name, Thanos Sicilas. Thanos Sicilas, I think. Thank you very much for becoming a patron of the show. If you want to learn more about the Coffee Fund cadre, the Coffee Fund on the APG, that's at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee.
Stand by for news.
I've done better with that. And before we move on, just for the video, we are going to acknowledge our patrons on Patreon. Our let's see, what do we call that? The executive producer and up tiers. And I should probably find some music to play while I do that. So bear with me with that. You guys can talk now if you want.
Hello.
Hello.
There you go. You're still there. That's good.
Yeah, we are still here.
I could do some.
Oh, no, that's
Talking.
okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at some of these surnames. I don't think I will.
Oh, you can read some of these. Why not? Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can just give it your best shot.
There's a couple there that I would like to say with my accent.
Okay. Well, so which do you want to do, Dana? You want to start from the bottom up?
Well, of course, Stephen Ward.
Okay.
Stephen Ward.
Sean
Fowler.
So
Joe Driver. Good love my accent. Liz Piper. Never heard of her.
Who's that?
Who's that?
All right. Can't seem to find the proper app to play music.
Clinton Baker.
Let's see here. That should do it. I haven't fired up these apps in a while. Okay, how about this? Yeah.
I've ridden through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be. No? Okay.
No, that's not it. I love my coffee. I drink it black. Actually, I drink it with cream. Okay. So now back to the proper page. Kenneth Ludwig, Adrian Meacham, Scott Urista, Stephen Wisniewski, Andrew Espig, Chris and Tanya. We have Larry Gregory, Ken Hayes, George Nolly, Steve Nass, Bill Bates, David Collier, and you want to take over, Dana? Moving up, Justin Breeze.
Yep. I was trying to follow you. There he is. Justin Breeze, Christopher Gilmick, Dr. Bo Abramson, Robert Fairburn, Eric Green, Dispatcher Mike. I like that. Dispatcher. Rob Simmons, Nico Rieger, Tanya Wyman, Clinton L. Baker, Jordan Rhodes, Jason DeLuzio.
Okay, and now Nick is going to take over.
With Tea Kettle 15, Stuart, Oxford Amir, Dirk Brom, Rob Warren, James DeVoy, Wilhelm Jan, Eric Knoll, Dom Burke, Justin Williams, Bill Hunter, Amir Noruzdi, Greg, Jay Johnson, Tony Fletcher, who is obviously something to do with archery, Dan Blake, Chad Freeman, Liz Piper, Glaucus Oliveira, Neville Bounds, never heard of the Bounder, Magnus Rudebeck, Watt Simpson, Barb Benzin, Kenneth Linda,
and Dana. Sean Patrick.
Yep, I got it. Sean Patrick, Alexander Ball, Joe Driver. That's how we say it in Boston, at least. Joe Mathis, Alexandria Radke, I believe that's what it is. It says there. Murph, Sean Fowler, Paul Stackos.
Okay, and I'll get the next tier level. The senior executive producers or assistant whatever they are. Mike Clark and Stephen Ward, and finally our top tier, $20 and up per episode. We have Lucas Diamond, the Flying Kiwi, and last and certainly not least, actually he was first to sign up with Patreon, Asa Armin.
Woohoo! Thanks
Vancouver.
very much.
You guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Brilliant.
Now we have enough money to put maybe into the gas tank for the road trip.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fun one, and your all your money is going to be put to great use. Of course, performing or not performing, but just doing the show week to week all the costs involved with that and equipment, and of course our meetups as well. So thank you everybody for supporting the show financially. And if you want to learn more again about it, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. I do apologize for I guess Liz was saying that the music was a little bit too loud.
Uh-oh.
Well, let's stop now. Oh, so's Jeff.
Yep.
When you're talking and playing music at the same time. So anyway, there we go. And sounds like it's finally ending. And so we'll go ahead and continue with our show. We have just played our news stinger, and that means we're going to jump right on into the news. That's interesting. Okay. I'm looking at the news items, and it starts with an F and then BCD. I'm confused, but I guess that's the first one we're going to talk about. Okay. First item in our news folder today, a 737 goes off the runway at NAS Jacksonville and right into the water. A Boeing 737. This is from what is this from? Sorry about that. Normally I put that in there. Heavy.com. Never heard of heavy.com/news. A Boeing 737 carrying 140 people from Guantanamo Bay has crashed at the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. The incident happened at 9:40 p.m. on Friday when the Miami Air International plane skidded off the runway at Naval Air Station Jacksonville in Florida and into the St. Johns River. Flight 293 was carrying 133 passengers and 7 crew members. The plane crashed into a relatively shallow dredge in the river, and the passenger cabin was not submerged in the water. And at the point of this news quote, I've been briefed that all lives have been accounted for, Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry said. And I believe that is still the case. No injury. Well, there may have been some injuries. 22 people, I believe, were taken to a hospital for various injuries. The only fatalities in this accident were animals, pets in the being carried below in the cargo compartment. The flight was not a commercial flight, but was a charter flight operating for the Navy from Guantanamo Bay to Jacksonville, Florida. Now, a little bit more information here from the Aviation Herald. The crew landed on Jacksonville NAS's runway 10, again at 9:42 local time, and they ended up overshooting the runway at the end and skidding off into the river 380 meters or 1,250 feet past the end of the runway, partially submerged. And as mentioned, a very shallow part of the river. So it was just sitting on the river bed. And so what was going on at the time? Well, it was stormy. Heavy thunderstorms, plus TSRA in the METAR, with mist and 3 statute miles visibility. And I think one of the most significant parts of this, in addition to the fact that it was a heavy thunderstorm overhead the airport, there was also a lot of wind. And the winds were gusting out of the west from 8 to 16, gusting to 16 knots. They landed with the wind, with that tailwind. And I believe I was reading an update to this that said that the available runway on that runway, the runway available on runway 10 was diminished a bit by some kind of a cable or something running toward the approach end of the runway that made the actual length of the runway 7,000 feet or so.
Do they have a wire across the runway?
Yeah, it's probably a catch cable for practicing.
Oh yeah, it could be the cable for
military fighters.
Military, yep. Yeah. Just like in actually technically Charleston, Savannah, Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah, right. So that essentially effectively made the runway shorter than the 9,000 some odd feet published. And Also, the runway is not grooved. We talked about grooved runways on the last show. Captain Jeff, the good-looking one, sent us some feedback regarding that. So, you don't have a lot of friction on the runway, especially when there's a lot of water on the runway. And there was something else I was reading about the fact that they had kind of made a crown in the center of the runway, and so to help water to, uh, shed off of the runway sides. Wasn't, as I mentioned, not grooved. So you have a lot of things going against you here: a big tailwind and a shortened runway. And I should mention that the thrust reverser on the left side, I believe, was on MEL or MCO. So it was a deferred item. So they only had one operable thrust reverser, just to kind of throw that in, gravy on top.
That would absolutely. Now, I wonder if they had actually done a stopping distance check, a confirmation. What do you reckon?
I don't know. What are you eating there, Dana?
I'm sorry, I poured it out. I just poured it out onto the paper here. I'm not showing you the microphone. I'm eating.
We still heard it though.
I'm sorry. Whole pumpkin seeds, healthy.
Okay, excellent.
Very good.
I'm sorry about that.
And the other thing, you mentioned the wire, Jeff, but then usually certainly on British airfields, then their actual position is not very clearly marked. So you usually know it's about 1,000 or 1,500 feet in, but it's not nearly as clearly marked as the actual threshold. So is that the case over there? Is it very easy to tell where the wire is? I know you obviously got to land beyond it, because there is a big danger that if you land on the wire, the nose wheel can hit the wire can flex, and then it might entangle with the main gear. That's the biggest danger of landing through the wire. So
go ahead.
So yeah, is it well marked or not?
Well, on the airports that we serve that have these cables, they give us, our company gives us a special page, and usually clearly, marks the position of these cables, how far from the approach end, and what kind of distance you have available between the approach end and the departure end cables, and confirm whether they're up or down. And also, when you're actually on the runway itself or near the runway, there are like signage on either side of the runway that indicate that that's where the cable location is going to be.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if in the heavy rain, poor visibility, how easy that is to see in comparison with the actual runway threshold and the lighting that might have been on. It's just an added factor. He might have erred on the safe side and made sure he was well over that cable before he put the aircraft down, and leaving himself with even less runway than he would have had otherwise.
So, go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say, from my experience operating the airports that we have, and I was just at Eglin last week, there is no real good marker on the actual runway. However, on both sides, the box that controls that is a white and red checkerboard box. So, in the conditions that they were in, I would imagine it was not very easy to see, but that's how I identified it. Where it was located from it, when you get closer to it, you can really see the cable, but from the 1,000-foot point, coming down 1,000 feet and descending, or roughly 2.5 miles away, I decided to pick up where the boxes were on both sides of the field. So that helped me at Eglin to get over it. Very concerning for me that in these type of conditions. Certainly, even though I landed on a dry runway, I only had about 6,800 feet on that particular runway because they have both cables up. So I always pull a landing report and get the data even on a dry runway to make sure that I'm not overweight for that distance, even though I know it's probably okay. But yeah, it's especially on what.
No, that would keep on going. I was going to say something after you finish your sentence.
Yeah, I was going to say, so yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been looking. Anyways, yeah, so it is an important thing to pull up our landing data. In this case, certainly with the tailwind non-groove runway, and that was the first question I was going to ask. Is it a groove runway? And then I can see that the airplane comes off to the right side of the runway, which tell me the right reverser is working, left reverser may have not been working.
Well, as we were discussing this, I pulled it up on the EFB, which is right here in front of me. And it's a non-groove runway, lack of porous friction overlays, rubber deposits, or runway contaminants due to weather may lead to reduced traction traction at this airport. And then they have the arresting gear systems. By the way, the ones that I'm used to seeing, Dana, aren't red and white checkerboard, but they're like yellow with like a black dot. That's what in my mind, I'm remembering what they look like on the sides of the
I was looking. The one in Eglin. Then that's the only one I can remember right now in reference. Is the one in Eglin. I remember it being a small checkerboard box. And that was just last week.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at this diagram, and it shows on the approach end of runway 10, the cable system 1,190 feet, and that leaves 6,812 feet available. So it's even less than 7,000 feet. So, yeah, that is definitely going to be a factor in this. As far as the requirement to pull up runway remaining and doing that kind of calculation, Nick, I'm not sure what the SOP is for Miami Air International. Dana and I know that when we have this capability now, we can look in the operational data manual and do that calculation, the old-fashioned way if we want. But now we have the capability, and we have had for some time now, via ACARS. We can submit the data, the braking conditions, and that kind of thing, and then have it, calculate the landing distances, and that's sent to us via ACARS. So that is definitely something that we would do in this situation. I'm just trying to decide to myself, and I'm sure we're going to learn more about this as time goes on, why they made that, because initially they were setting themselves up for runway 28, which would have been into the wind, and they decided at the last minute to instead go to runway 10. And then it may have something to do with the weather cells that were surrounding the airport, and they thought maybe they would have a better go at a go around or a missed approach if they came or tried to land heading to the east instead of the west. I don't know. Not sure exactly what the radar looked like at the time. Now we do have some images here in our show notes, and from I'm not sure exactly where Liz got these pics, but these images, but not sure if these were the exact radar depictions at the moment of this accident or not. So, yeah, not sure exactly that. I'm sure that weather is definitely a factor in determining, the runways, the runway that they chose to land on. So,
yeah, it's just that amount of crosswind, ungrooved, possibly very wet, and the chances of aquaplaning high. Oh, geez. Yeah.
And actually, crosswind was really almost nothing. It was just mostly a tailwind.
Yeah.
So
very sad.
Yeah, not good.
But I think there's probably a few lessons for those of us about going around.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, guys, and I see 04 at 0122 Zulu, and then 040145 Zulu. So you have at 10122 Zulu 350 at 4 knots, 5 miles, heavy thunderstorm. Then about the time, maybe I missed where the time was.
Within just a couple of minutes. This is the 45 observation, and they said they landed at 42.
So honestly, they probably had the 0122 weather or that thereabouts. Okay, so if you look at the 0105 weather and then 122, both those would be landing on runway 10 or with a crosswind of 10.
True.
And then when about the touchdown zone, that's probably when the switch had happened and became a tailwind, and they probably didn't even know about it, is my guess, because they touched down right so close to that time.
Well, the tower would have given them a tailwind.
Not necessarily.
Really?
If they asked for
it. They usually do, though, when they give you the landing clearance. I don't know if they're required.
Well, but the landing clearance, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is this that value was taken after. So there is a possibility that they were swinging.
Yeah.
And when they checked on, the 3 or 4 minutes it takes, from the time you check on until the time you land, depending on how close you are to the runway, maybe the wind shift was occurring then. That's what I'm saying.
I
It
think
looks
you're
like if you read the numbers the way they're progressing, go 060 at 3 knots, at 013 Zulu, at 015 Zulu, it's 080 3 knots, and at 122 Zulu, 3504 4 knots. So there's really it's a steady progression, switching around, obviously, but it wasn't until after the accident that we had the winds out of the west. So at some point in there is where they probably got the switch, and it may or may not have been told to them. I'm just throwing that out there.
I think you're right that with the cell coming over the top of the airport, or very close to the airport, and then sliding by, the winds obviously shifted almost 180 degrees. So that could account for the fact that they were setting up for 1-0.
And who knows what the winds aloft were doing either. I mean, they may have had more of a tailwind than they expected, or end up with more of a tailwind than they expected.
Well, we hope to learn more. I'm sure the investigators will give us all that data to see what factors were involved in this. The good news is nobody was killed. No human, anyway.
What about the dogs?
Just Rufus.
Oh, that's why I said human.
Two dogs and a cat.
Yep. Oh, well. Okay. Anything else to say about that one? Okay. Good. The second item in the news folder, a Tunis Air A. Well, before we do that, there is some breaking news, and that involves, and right before we started pushing the record button for this show, I heard a little blurb on the cable news channel, and they were talking about a business jet that had left Las Vegas and heading down for Monterrey, Mexico, and that it was missing, and they hadn't heard from it. And then apparently not too long after that, Liz sent a link from airlive.net, and it turns out that the remains of a Bombardier Challenger 600, the missing aircraft, have been found after it disappeared en route from Las Vegas to Monterey. And it has crashed, and there are no survivors. There were 14 on board. So that's just what we have right now. Not sure exactly what happened there, but clearly it did not make it to its destination. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this crash.
I'm sure we will. Just looking at the photograph of the impact, Jeff, that was not spread out.
Nope.
So that is like airplane shaped. So it was probably coming down pretty steeply, flat plating in, I would guess. But you're right. We'll find out more later. But normally when you get a high speed impact, or when he's coming in a more normal attitude, the debris is spread a long way, but this is just airplane shaped, straight flat on the ground.
And if it's coming in like really in a vertical manner, usually they're just a big crater or something,
Yeah, if he's nosediving in, exactly. Yeah.
But in this case, as you mentioned, it's just like the
pancaked.
Pancaked in.
To me, it looks like a stall.
Yeah. Well, who knows?
We don't know. But it's clearly in the complete form of the airplane. Like it was just put there.
Right. All right. So now we'll go to item B. Tunis Air A320 lands with vehicles on the runway. And I'm thinking to myself, Jeff, you meant to get the audio from that before you actually did the recording of the show. But that was one of those things that apparently I missed. But that's okay, because I can just push this link and start playing it. This is from VAS Aviation, Real ATC Communications, a Tunis Air Airbus. Am I pronouncing that right? Tunis Air Airbus.
I'm guessing Tunis Air. Yes,
from Tunisia, I guess, right? A320-211 performing flight 716 from Tunis DTTA to Paris Orly LFPO had been instructed twice to go around due to vehicles carrying out an inspection on the runway. The aircraft landed instead while the vehicles were still on the runway. The tower controller reprimanded the crew and filed a safety report. And so let's listen to this, shall we? We're waiting for the audio to come in. Oh, need to turn it up.
Il y a encore une arrivée et après on pourra faire l'inspection. On fait 3402, bonjour. Après le départ du CRJ depuis Whisky 41.
And what he's saying is France Soleil 3402, hello, behind the departure of CRJ from W41, line up on runway 24 and wait behind.
Alignez-vous piste 24, attendez derrière.
He said,
Air France 138, uniforme piste 24, autorisé décollage, vent 160 degrés, 3 nœuds.
clear for takeoff and do some décollage.
Turk 75 Alpha, contact ground, bye bye. Ground, bye bye, 75 Alpha. Inspection en unité, tu peux pénétrer et contrôler piste 0826, rappel piste dégagée.
Hopefully we'll get to the important thing where they're actually speaking English so we can understand what they're saying.
But it is interesting
Say again?
that we haven't understand a word of what they said so far. So,
which is kind of part of the problem with these situations where they're using different languages, and if it's not your native language or you don't know the language, you don't really have any idea what they're saying.
Nope, not a thing.
All right.
Now
I know what they're saying because I'm looking at this video that VAS Aviation put together, and they're putting the English in the captions so I can read it.
Pas de souci, 42, je vous rappelle. 42, Québec Echo. François 3402, piste 24, autorisé décollage, vent 130 degrés, 2 nœuds. François 3402, autorisé au décollage, piste 24. Alors, France 738, uniforme, contactez le départ 127 décimal 750, au revoir. 27 750, le départ 738, uniforme, au revoir.
Au revoir. Goodbye. Okay.
Tower, Tuner 716, full service runway 26.
Tuner 716, bonjour. For information, runway inspection in progress, reduce minimum approach speed, and report short final runway 26.
Okay. So he said, basically continue, there's a runway inspection in progress.
Okay, so minimum speed, and we call you short final runway 26.
Okay, there's an understanding. Okay. Minimum speed, we'll call you short final 26. Another airplane he's communicating with, giving him takeoff clearance to runway 24, which is a different runway.
Conseil 3402, contactez le départ 127 décimal 750.
Contact departure.
Le départ, au revoir, Conseil 3402.
Now we're back to runway 26.
Inspection unité.
Inspection 1.
Go ahead.
Inspection unité, tu en as pour combien de temps?
How long will you be?
Parti.
Don't know what he said there.
Tuner 716, confirm you are at minimum approach speed.
Okay, that's the Tuner flight. Confirm you're at minimum approach speed.
Yes, sir. So minimum approach speed for Tuner 716.
Roger.
Don't know what that was.
La tour, bonjour, à France 45, Golf Juliette, en finale, il y a les 26 avec 190 nœuds.
Reçu, réalisé 160 nœuds, rappelez continuer à piste 26.
Okay, that is an airplane behind Tunis Air and Air France on runway 26.
On a dit 160 nœuds, rappel en cours de 26 à France 45, Golf Juliette.
La 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 la.
Inspection unité, pour info, le trafic à 1 minute.
Okay, what did they say there? Let me read the Translation. Inspection 1, for information, the traffic is to land in 1 minute.
Trafic à 1 minute.
I think that must be the inspection vehicle.
Finnair 716, go around the wind 320 degrees 2 knots.
Okay. He issues a go-around command to Tunair 716, and then he gives them the read, the wind readout.
Tunair 716, clear to land, runway 26.
No, that's not what he told him. He just thought he was repeating the instruction, but he said cleared to land, runway 26. Negative.
Negative, go around the runway 26, wind 320 degrees 2 knots.
Okay, negative, go around, runway 26. And then he gives them the wind readout again. That's the inspection vehicle. And the
inspection unité.
Roger, inspection 1, contact ground 121.705.
Contact le sol 121.705.
I think he's kind of talking like that because he's watching out the window. This Tunis Air 716 that he told to go around twice is landing on runway 26. But it appears that the inspection vehicle has cleared the runway.
Air 716 from Orly?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you are cleared for going around procedure and you landed instead, so please next time be more aware.
I just, we heard with the wind velocity and direction, and there's the people, the 2 trucks that we saw them just vacated from the runway 26.
Yeah, but we told you twice go around, so if we tell you go around, you just go around, even with the vehicles are just exiting the runway, sir. Next time you obey.
Yes, ma'am, but he gave me the direction of the wind. I heard that he didn't understood go around. I didn't understood from him and go around. He gave me the wind. I thought he told me to land.
For information, we'll make a report about this. That was really, really dangerous.
Okay.
Okay. So there you go. Coming in for landing. He says, okay. Slow to your minimum approach speed. There's going to be a runway inspection. And I think he understands that. And they continue. And then there's some stuff going on the radio in a different language. And we understand that the inspection vehicle is on there. And he's telling the inspection vehicle, hey, the airplane on final is going to be landing in 1 minute. And the inspection vehicle does clear. However, the tower controller is not sure that they're going to clear in time. So he tells the Tunis Air Flight 716 to go around. And then he says, winds 320 at 2 knots or whatever he says. And the Tunair or Tunis Air Flight kind of interprets that as a clearance to land. And so he says, cleared to land. And then the tower controller comes back, no, negative. Go around, winds 320 at 2 knots or whatever he says. So interesting discussion about communications here, I think, or lessons to be learned from communications. What did you think about this, Captain Nick?
It's always difficult when you've got mixed languages, and they're permitted to do this. It's a country permitted variation from the ICAO rules that English is standard. So long as you do everything in French, I think you can't do half and half. That was permitted with these various aircraft. But of course, the Tunisian aircraft, he's doing the ICAO thing and speaking English, so they're required to speak English to him. But of course, you lose a great deal of situational awareness when you're only getting part of the picture. Because, as you said many times, Jeff, listening out to the radio allows you to obtain a mental picture of what is going on around you. And if you can't get most of that because it's in a language you don't understand, then you're missing out on all that information. The other problem is the controller's accent is fairly strong. So even I, who quite used to hearing French accent, the first time I listened to this, I wasn't sure the guy had said go around. And certainly if you hear someone from my country tell you to go around, he is very firm. It's an order. He doesn't make it sound like it's a piece of conversation, and he usually won't tag a wind on the end of it.
That's the confusing thing, I think. Why would you tell the person what the winds are?
Yeah. The fact that there was another voice that came on very soon after makes me wonder if this was someone under training, and the supervisor, his supervising controller, came on at the end, or it might have just been the tower supervisor. I don't know. But yes, you're right. And someone in the chat room was saying, well, but they didn't give any directions. Well, that's an American thing. In Europe, if you're given a go around, you're expected to just fly the published missed approach procedure. So there's no reason to add any other instructions. You're just told go around. But the main problem was the guy didn't read back the go around after either of the controller's orders. And if I was the controller, God forbid, the first thing I would require would be an acknowledgement of the fact that I've given a go around. And if I didn't hear it immediately, I would repeat more urgently the instruction. Oh, excuse me. You guys carry on.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not uncommon here in the U.S. if they want you to go around, for them just to say go around and not give you any instructions until after you've started to execute the go around procedure. So that is not uncommon here either, Nick. But throwing in the wind there definitely is a factor. And then when the supervisor or the female voice comes on, I'm thinking I can understand very clearly what she's saying. And I had the same issue with you with the other controller, not very clear what he's saying.
No, and being that Jeff and I primarily fly in the United States, we are used to having a full comprehension of the accents. Well, sometimes depends on if you have my accent or not, or air traffic controller accent that has my accent. So that sometimes can be a little issue. But in the big scheme of things, I enjoy flying in the States because I don't have to try to understand the bad English accent. And I think that was a huge contributing factor. I agree with both you guys that having situational awareness, they did communicate to the vehicles on the runway. I'm sure they saw the vehicle on the runway from the flight deck, or the cockpit, excuse me, not a flight deck. That's a aircraft carrier flight deck. Anyways, and being that said, there was a loss of communication because he couldn't understand where what they were saying to the vehicle on the runway. So I think that's a huge contributing factor. And I agree that, if you need to go around, the controller just needs to be go around. In that wind was just confusing to me too. So I would have questioned it. You got to try to listen. And, one of the things that we always try to do is always, if we don't understand or if there's any question, we always tend to query ATC because an extra radio call doesn't cost you anything. So I think there was probably some confusion there.
And to be fair to the controller, the initial controller, after the Tunis Air flight, after he was told to go around and he said, Roger, cleared to land, the guy comes back and goes, negative, go around, winds, so. So right there, I mean, I guess he thought he was being pretty definitive when he read back the wrong thing. It says negative. That should have been the clue to the Tunis Air flight, or the Tunisian Air airplane, that, oh, okay, no, it's not a clearance to land. He wants us to go around.
He was listening, but he wasn't getting the community. What happened was there was listening going on and speaking, but there's no communication.
Right.
It wasn't.
Hearing it, but not really comprehending it.
Exactly correct.
But again, I think a major factor here, in addition to the different languages and the accent, but why in the world would they include, and Nick, you're probably right, maybe it was a student or somebody under training thinking that he has to always say the wind velocity and direction after each of these kind of calls. And that just did not help with comprehension of what they really wanted them to do.
No, you're right. But I think come the actual inquiry, because they'll obviously look into this, the fact that the controller clearly said go around twice, and the guy didn't, I think that will be the deciding factor. And even when he said clear to land and was, as you pointed out, negative go around, the guy really hasn't got a leg to stand on.
Right. I agree. Whoa. I hear music from her studio, Lakeside Studio in South Carolina. She's a doctor, a skydiver, a marathon runner, a strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument rated pilot. Her Steph.
Woo, I think you're done talking. Sorry, it cut out there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My signal is like not great.
I was going to try and time it right, and then I was like, I'm just not sure. But hey, I made it. I'm finally here. I'm sorry. I feel a little bad because you guys basically decided on today's showtime on this day and time for working around my schedule, and then I still managed to mess it up anyway.
You're always worth it, Steph, so don't apologize. No apology necessary.
It was one of those days. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was looking at your glimpse that you sent me and thinking, well, that's kind of a circuitous route home.
Well, I took a look at it. I go that way not infrequently because 77 South can just be a major parking lot. And I took a look at it, and I have a point on a bridge, an overpass, where I can make that decision kind of last minute as to 77 or kind of go around and around the airport. And I looked at I-77 and it was a parking lot all the way as far as I could see. And I went, no.
Nope. Yeah.
Nope. So I don't know if it was actually any faster in the long run, but at least I didn't have to sit in stop and go traffic.
Yeah, that always makes it better.
Yeah. And it really wasn't bad. It's just, a little bit longer that way around.
Well, we're glad you're here. So have you been listening to our discussion about this?
I have been listening to everything.
Okay.
I hear
even all the stuff that we said about you behind your back? Uh-oh.
Yeah. I took some notes.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was nice.
No, we did not. She knows we would never say anything bad.
I don't know. I missed the first few minutes of whatever you were saying.
Oh, the first few minutes. Whew. Glad you missed that.
Thank God.
Yeah. You're safe.
Okay.
I'm hoping Liz was taking notes for me, though.
Yeah. No, she never does. So, any comments or any input regarding this?
No, yeah, I think you guys summarized everything I would have said about it. I always think it's a little, so for me as a native English speaker, and at least dabbling in some other languages and being familiar with other accents, generally I didn't have Nick's difficulty understanding the French controller, although I think his accent was quite strong. But I'm thinking if you are also not a native English speaker trying to listen to that, you are that much more at risk of not understanding what is going on or being said. And I'm wondering if the Tunis Air pilots, I don't think English was their first language either. So you've got two non-native English speakers trying to talk to each other with very different accents, giving potentially some extraneous information. Although I think I agree with Nick, he was pretty clear there in his go around clearance, or not giving them clearance to land. And I think it was mentioned by someone else about expectation bias. You're expecting to hear a landing clearance, and then you hear the wind information, and in your mind just glosses over the fact that was go around. It was okay, cleared to land, because he says it so confidently right after he gets the go around command. And I think that might be discussed in further detail on a future podcast by other podcasters. So
confirmation bias is definitely a strong
confirmation
thing.
bias. Yeah. Expectation bias, confirmation bias.
Or expectation bias. Same thing, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Or
whatever.
maybe there's some nuance differences.
Not sure.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
It was a good conversation. Good discussion on that topic.
Excellent.
I missed out on all the intro stuff. I did want to, you guys had a whole bunch of meetups that you talked about, and I wanted to mention I'm having a meetup in Charlotte.
Yay.
On this Wednesday, the
2 days from now?
8th, 2 days from now.
Okay.
And I mentioned it the last show, and I mentioned it being at 7:30 in the evening. I've changed that. I no longer have the meeting that I was supposed to attend, so we moved it up to 5:30 local time. much better for me because I've got a lot of stuff to do this week. So if I can not be out super late, that helps me.
Where's it going to be?
Quite a bit. We're going to do it at the Heist Brewery, which is in Noda in Charlotte. It is on North Davidson Avenue, which is what Noda stands for.
Oh.
I put I forget the exact address off the top of my head, but it is in the APG community calendar. It is on Slack. I posted it to the social medias.
Oh, nice.
So
look at you.
I know.
So I thought
like an adult.
I thought Noda was is that right? No, duh.
No, duh. I mean,
no.
Yeah, that's like a backronym for it. No, I'm just kidding.
A what?
Backronym? Where you take an acronym and then you build.
I've never heard that term.
No?
No.
So the acronym stands for something, but then you
change
turn
it into something
else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. Mm-hmm. Acronym. I learned so much doing this show.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I was trying to work out what a social media is.
It's okay, Nick. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you've got the computer turned on and your headphones in the ears. That's good.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, this week I've got the headphones on my ears.
Yeah.
Last week it was a different matter.
Yeah. Well,
all right,
we're here for all your tech support. Huh?
I guess my bandwidth is really going nuts.
Uh-oh.
Because everything just blanked out for like 20 seconds. I'm thinking, well, I guess they're still there.
We're still here. We were still talking.
Yeah. Good.
About
sure it was
Jeff.
Great.
There was no blank spaces in there. No word, no blank
Excellent.
Spaces. Yeah.
Okay. Well, are you recording yours? Stuff?
No, but give me. Sorry,
Okay.
I should have been doing that while you were talking.
Because
that would have been smart.
That will be.
I am now recording.
Excellent. Yeah, this is going to be one of those shows I think that I'm definitely going to have to use it, unfortunately. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to skip C, D, and
Letter
E.
F.
And we're going to go right to this one, which happened, was it
yesterday?
Today or yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Okay. 41 dead after a Sukhov. Is that right? Sukhoi. There we go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got to scroll this thing down. Okay, here we go. Sukhoi Super 100-95 at Moscow, May 5th. Yeah, so yesterday, crashed on landing. And from what we know so far is there's some indication that after it took off, it was struck by lightning. They were having some communication issues, sporadic communication via the radio. They did squawk emergency and brought the airplane around. Now, I'm not sure of any other issues involving the lightning strike and what capabilities of the airplane had been taken away or what kind of issues they were having to deal with. And perhaps that's what caused them to come in to the first approach very, very fast and unstabilized. And they did a go around from one of the reports that I was looking at. And then they came back around for a second attempt at a landing. And the second attempt, they hit the runway and bounced at least once, perhaps twice. The third one or the second one, depending on how many times they bounced. And some of the surveillance video that we've seen shows the airplane apparently or out of airspeed and the nose kind of pointing down at the runway, and they're probably looking at the nose coming down rapidly toward the runway and then pulling back to prevent the nose section of the airplane hitting, and that just kind of it made the tail come down very, very hard against the runway. That last touchdown looks like it caused the main gear to break off, or maybe even the struts go through and puncture through the wings, and perhaps puncturing the fuel tanks. And you can see it kind of coming down on its wing-mounted engines as well. And then just nothing but a big fireball as it skids to a stop. And then some of the surveillance video that we see shows the front left and right doors opening up, the slides coming out, and the passengers coming out of the airplane via the slides. And from about the wing back to the tail it's just completely engulfed in a very horrible fire. And we're surmising that the 41 people that were killed in this were back in that back part of the airplane. And
there was actually some video from inside the plane
Mhm.
near the wing, and that fire was incredibly intense almost immediately.
And from what I could tell in that piece of video that you're referring to,
Mhm.
Steph, it was on the outside of the airplane.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It did appear to be on the outside, but I mean, clearly, very quickly.
And there have been
was not
reports that say that
contained
some of the
outside.
passengers said that there was a fire inside the airplane before it landed, or it was on fire before the aircraft landed. But I don't think we're getting any confirmation of that. I think that might just be speculation or,
Mhm.
typical witness reports.
Well, the video of the airplane touching down didn't look like it was on fire.
It did not. You're
No.
right.
It did not.
So, and I also read something that said that the flight crew, especially the flight attendants at the front of the airplane, saved a bunch of people's lives by grabbing them by the collar and forcibly really coming out of there rapidly. And then it made sense to read that the flight attendant or the flight crew was grabbing people by their collar and throwing them out the door of the airplane and down the slide. And if not for that, they said that the death toll could have been much higher. And also reports, guess what? You're not going to believe it.
Oh, don't tell me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can guess.
Yeah, I've seen video of
Yeah.
the bag.
People with their bags, and they said that that a lot of the people that probably perished did so because the idiots that were in the front of the airplane, in the mid part of the airplane, were opening up overhead bins to grab their luggage before they left.
I would be punching those people and
I
stepping
hope
over them.
that those people just
Seriously.
realize what they've done. Horrible.
I mean, that's a little bit of speculation there. You don't know.
That is
I mean,
speculation.
that fire was exceptionally intense, and who knows if
True.
everyone had done what they were supposed to do and not stopped to take baggage or get anything down from the overhead bins. If anything different might have happened, but certainly it doesn't help. So if that is ever you in that unfortunate situation, it's just stuff. Okay, it's human
You can
lives are more
replace it.
important.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this, and I don't know if anybody's taken a peek at the inside of this. Not the particular airplane that went down, but just in general, and it's all fly by wire. So
Is
I
it?
don't know. Yeah, it actually looks very much like an Airbus cockpit, and it has a side yoke on each side, and I don't need to go into more detail, but one has to suspect that with the lightning strike, if it didn't take out some of the systems, obviously took out some electronics with the loss of communication. So I don't believe that the pilots would land the airplane that hard unless they're having problems controlling it.
That is what people are surmising, because obviously coming in, either they were having difficulty with the loss of airplane systems and capability. Perhaps maybe they couldn't put the slats and the flaps out. I don't know. Maybe they had to come in at a very high speed, or maybe just a human factor of, we're in a bad situation. We need to get the airplane on the ground as quickly as we can, and kind of rushing themselves. But we're not going to know, of course, until the Russian investigators start, giving us some information about the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorders.
No, though, of interest, though, it was actually Boeing that built this aircraft in conjunction with Sukhoi. Boeing were a major advisor on the engineering, the design, providing maintenance, crew training, manuals, spare parts, and supply, etc., rather than Airbus. So if they did build it in the same model as an Airbus, it would have been of Sukhoi's design, I would guess, and nothing to actually do with Airbus.
Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody said it had anything to do with Airbus.
No, the flight deck just resembles I'm not inferring it's an Airbus. I'm just saying it would resemble a cockpit very similar to what the Airbus product would be.
All right. Okay.
If you look at it, it has, it very much looks the same. It's just a different airplane.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
a Russian-built airplane, and
yeah, it has had a bit of a troubled past as well, Jeff, because it came into service with quite a few airlines. And for example, CityJet, an Irish airline, was flying them out of London City Airport. But they've had a lot of serviceability problems, a lot of problems with the engines not making their way up to their expected life cycles before they required corrective maintenance. And some airlines have sent their aircraft back to them because of the lack of support and lack of they've been grounded for a long time waiting for spares, this kind of thing. So it sounds like the company has not been one of the best organized ones when it comes to this particular aircraft as well.
But to be fair, I think a lot of new airplanes recently have been experiencing all kinds of issues, perhaps not quite ready for prime time issues. And this just happens to be one
good
of them.
point. And it was a new aircraft, and it was only
doesn't mean that that's not an excuse for it. Of course, they should be ready to go. When they're released and certified, they should be perfect.
Yeah, it was developed 2000, so it's been around for a little while, but
it has been. It's been a hard sell for them as well.
Yeah, it's had a bit of a checkered history.
Yeah, and the only other crash that I'm aware of, and we've talked about it on this show, was the one when they were doing a demonstration flight in Indonesia, and that was, of course, all pilot error. They basically flew into a mountain.
Yeah, ignoring their warning systems, their terrain warning systems. So
that was in 2012.
Yeah.
So there was no indication or whatever that to indicate that this had anything to do with an Airbus product. So I don't know where we got confused there, but
it was just my mention of the way that just describing to the community over the radio how the cockpit and
I could just say it's a fly-by-wire system with side stick controllers. That would suffice. So
okay,
no need to get the get flamed up about Airbus and Boeing.
Airbus-esque.
Yeah, this is so.
I'm just gonna keep that
ridiculous.
going.
I think sometimes. Okay, with that, I think. Anything else in the news? We talked about that Bombardier 600 that just crashed. We don't know anything about that, and we'll try to cover some of these other items in the news folder on a subsequent show. And now I think it'd be a nice thing to do to head over to your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
Excellent. Let's start off with Tom. He says, hello, I wanted to say, after hearing all your responses to the American 321, veering all over the runway and taking out a sign, that as an aspiring pilot, it's a privilege to be able to listen to and draw from your joint experiences. As you went through the specific techniques for a crosswind takeoff, I learned something that I will be able to take with me and hopefully apply in my flying career. Listening to the discussion, I came to the conclusion that perhaps you all take for granted the value of the training you've each received and the invaluable experience you've gained from it. It's something you can't measure. I think having the freedom to go out and experiment in a single pilot environment probably gives you a real appreciation of the basic application of simple aerodynamics, which ultimately translates into good airmanship. The ability to make little mistakes in an environment where it is relatively inconsequential is how we learn best as a species, and it's hard to replicate in a simulator or even whilst under instruction. I think this is something that the new generation of pilots is missing out on some cases. In some cases. Over here in the UK, you can get to the right seat of an airliner with little over 100 hours as pilot in command in light aircraft. This is probably because the demand for first officers is so high, and the sectors that support progressive hour building don't seem to exist here as they do in the US. This is great news for someone like me, as it means I can start to see a return on my investment in training relatively quickly. And frankly, it makes it an option for me at all. I also have the advantage of having a separate career, which means I can take my time. And because I'm a bit of a geek, I use that time to learn as much as I can organically by, for example, listening to the ABG and benefiting from your experience. You all have more responsibility on your shoulders than you realize. Um, Consider, though, an 18-year-old that goes straight from school onto an airline partnered program and may not even get a PPL under some training programs. In less than 2 years, they might have gone from knowing little or nothing about aviation to being one of 2 flight crew in the cockpit of an 80-ton jet. I'm not saying it's wrong or even unsafe, but I think for captains, it's important to consider that these individuals have not necessarily had the chance to hone the real basic skills that you might not even consider to be a skill, such as taking off in a crosswind. Finally, my 2 cents. I don't think in the airline industry you should ever be afraid to be that guy that gives advice on techniques. Everyone has their own style, and you definitely don't want to be a backseat driver. But if you can see you have some knowledge that might make your FO's technique more effective, I think you should absolutely speak up. One of the things I'm looking forward to about joining the industry is the fact that you really do learn from those that have gone before you. Of course, there's a way to go about it, but if you can't take a bit of constructive criticism, then you're perhaps in the wrong industry. As is often said on the show, a good pilot is always learning. Thanks again for the amazing show. Clear skies, Tom. Thanks very much for the kind words, Tom. And, he makes a lot of good points. You're right. Or at least I know that I do take for granted the training that I've had and the experiences that I've had over these 37, 38 years of flying. And perhaps I need to, look at my attitude when it comes to, not saying things and maybe taking the opportunity to, make some salient points with people when I'm flying that might benefit them. I know I said that I normally don't do that kind of thing, but unless I'm with somebody that's relatively new to the airline or relatively new to the jet. And I think that, that's probably something that you should expect if you're new with a particular airline or a certain airplane.
Do you find so airlines are or at least the way airlines operate and train their pilots is fairly standardized. Do you find that there are certain people who are very set in their ways as pilots and will do the same thing the same way over and over and over again, whether it's maybe the best way to approach a particular scenario or not?
No,
as long as it's reasonable and safe.
Not from my point of view. I'm not seeing by the time people, because I'm not a line check airman, I'm not a simulator instructor. Perhaps they would maybe see that more than somebody like me being a line pilot. I don't know. What would you think, Captain Dana?
I don't know.
Do you have flown with somebody that is set in their, I mean, I think that I've flown with captains in the past, in the early days back in, when I got started 30 years ago with the airlines, there were definitely some captains that were set in their ways, and they basically briefed that, well, I kind of pretty much go by most of the standard operating procedures, but this is where I differ and do this and this, and this is why. And, it always put me in a weird position like, okay. Well, this is going to be fun.
I guess I was getting at more if there's a reasonable choice A and a reasonable choice B, do you fly with people who will always opt for A versus people who always opt for B, just because that's how they feel most comfortable doing things, or I think is more correct. Correct way to do things.
My experience is number one, you just have the general types that are going to want to do it their way, and those guys tend to be the people you don't want to fly with. The guys that pretty much follow at least some company standard procedures, they generally, I'm one of them. I try to, at least now as a captain, I lead that way. Because I find it's easier not to try to think about how the company wants to do it versus how I'm going to do it when I go into the simulator. So it's more standard. So as far as learning and being a single pilot, I see talking a little about being single pilot. It's a completely different mentality when you're out there. Being a single pilot, and that is that you have a little more freedom to do it as you wish to do it, as long as you're not violating any rules and the regulations and not, violating the manufacturer specs on the airplane. So it is a little bit of a different flying experience. For me, if I'm flying a light airplane, I mean, I still try to find and fly by my, prescribed ways, following checklist and doing things the way that I was trained and taught to do it in the general aviation world. Military world might be a little different. I'm not sure, but basic flying skills are basic flying skills. Just a matter of how you apply them.
But I think maybe Steph's saying, so you notice something and you're thinking, I'm going to give this person who may not have that much experience in this airplane here, I see what you're doing here, but you might want to consider doing it this way, item or way number or letter B.
Yeah, I was just wondering, maybe they've
A.
forgotten about it, or they've decided they like it in favor of another technique.
Well,
and if those conversations ever come up.
In my briefing, and to answer that specific in a very specific way, in my briefing, I pretty much say, listen, fly the airplane the way you want to fly it, as long as you're flying company, within company standards. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you how to fly the airplane. If you'd like me to help you, and you want to learn some techniques, I'm certainly willing to help you out. But I'm not. That's one of the things I'm very specific about, because I don't want them to feel like I'm watching over their shoulder and watching everything they're going to do. The only time I will say something really is a captain now is I will say something if they're going to violate a rule, put the airplane in danger, or not fly it properly. And those are the and when I say not fly properly, either take off, landing, not following standing procedures, and possibly putting the aircraft in danger. So, those are the things that I look for, and I try not to be that guy that's sitting there, because I've had plenty of guys reach up and want to fly the airplane for me, and that was my number one thing that I hated. If you want to fly the airplane, it's your leg.
Gotcha.
So one of the problems, Steph, with our airline is that, and not a problem with the airline, but one of the things that I come up against is that they try to streamline certain ways to do things, like for instance, VNAV descents and using VNAV in the approach environment and terminal area. And there are other modes that you can use in the autoflight system, vertical speed, indicated airspeed modes, but they don't really they hardly mention those. And it's like they kind of drill into the people going through training that this is the way you do it. Use VNAV, use VNAV, use VNAV. So they are not used to seeing it, or even are not comfortable at all with doing it. And then when I'm flying the airplane, I mention that I know this is not exactly the way that they're teaching us now. I mean, they used to, but this is the way I'm going to fly the airplane. And I'm not going to, I say, as Dana does, I don't care how you fly the airplane, as long as it's smooth, safe, comfortable, and don't, do anything against the standard operating procedures. Otherwise, have at it. And I completely understand when they're doing it the way that they were trained to do in the simulator. But I'm hoping that by watching when I'm flying the airplane the way that I'm doing it, that they might pick up something that they think, yeah, actually that's smoother to do it that way than. But I never say you should try doing it this way.
I guess that really is kind of where I was going with it, because that happens in my job too, where there's techniques, and kind of as long as you accomplish the goal of doing it correctly without causing harm or injury, it's fine. There are ways I think are better to do things, and I've seen people do things a lot of different ways. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. Some of them I learn from, some of them I'm like, wow, that will be something I never do. But if you have someone observing you, you're almost hoping like, hey, pick up on the stuff that I think I'm doing well here. And then they just never seem to.
Maybe
no,
I should.
They never do.
Oh, that's why you're asking.
I was just curious if it worked kind of the same way as
completely blew you off.
I feel.
Yeah, that's fine. I see what you're doing, and it's much better than the way I'm doing it. But I'm not going to change.
I'm not going to change.
In all honesty, I mean, you're hitting it right on the head, Steph. It's really, and Jeff, if you're as an individual want to become a pilot, learn, you watch the people that have been doing it for a longer time. I mean, I learned stuff from Jeff. I mean, and I'm hoping that my FOs learn something from me, and that's how we pass down the knowledge. So, I do it just. I actually fly very similar to the way Jeff does. I've always liked, vertical speed and IS in a lot of situations. It's a lot smoother. It makes it more comfortable for the passengers. And one of the first things, and Tom, take this to heart. One of the first things, and anybody else listening out there, one of the first things my flight instructor ever taught me, way back when I was learning to fly, and I still remember this day, and I think I've mentioned it before on the show, is that the most important thing is smoothness in the airline world counts. So everything you got to do, you got to think about how smooth you're going to be. And the last thing I want to say is just, to the AB type of conversation here. I also like to talk to my first officers and figure out what their experience level is, because if they're new, just out of training and are still trying to figure things out, my radar is going to be a lot more aggressive in interjecting and helping this person out, and helping them in any way that I can, and showing them some things. So but if I have a senior FO like I had 2 trips ago, that's has more time on the airplane than I do, I'm certainly not going to say anything unless it has to be said in that regard.
Nick.
Sorry, just having a trouble with the mute button there. I've spent quite a few years as an instructor and a check pilot in my previous career when I came to the airlines. And because our particular outfit has pretty experienced pilots, the great vast majority of the time, I have absolutely no need to say anything. And it's quite obvious to me that when people get to a certain stage in their flying career, they start to feel they've got a pretty good handle on things, and they're much more likely to resent uninvited comment on their flying techniques. So with you, Jeff, have tended not to comment unless people invite it. Some first officers are very keen to learn, and they specifically ask for any debrief points. Others, it's just a job well done. And even if there are things that I wouldn't have done that way, so long as it's safe, then I usually let it go.
Good point. And recently I've had, and I think usually from people that are not really brand new on the airplane, but are still kind of learning the idiosyncrasies of the Mad Dog, and they might come in and land, a little bit more firmly or whatever. Something didn't go the way they had hoped, and then they start saying, "Well, I think I did this," and then it's almost like inviting me to make a comment about it, and I'm very, very ready to give them my impression of what I think had happened during that, but it's only after they have kind of opened that door, unless it's something really, really bad and severe, and like you're really pounded on, and you see that over and over again. Then you might say, "Here, let's talk about this," but that very rarely happens.
The other thing is that I very rarely fly with the same guy more than once or twice. I only watch him do one handling sector, and I then may not see him again for a year or two.
Oh, good
so there's no way I'm going to see any recurrent problems that individuals might have.
A little bit different than the environment that Dana and I are working in, where we see
very,
somebody
very
for
much so.
maybe 6 to 8 or more segments on a trip.
Yeah, if I saw the same guy 6 sectors make the same kind of, I call it a mistake, but the same handling idiosyncrasy that was far from perfect, then I might be more encouraged to, say something.
And I think you and I, Jeff, work in as you mentioned, a completely different environment than Nick. They've got one takeoff, one landing per rotation. I don't know what they call that over there.
Or
trip, so pairing or whatever it is, and we're multiple and become far more proficient a lot quicker. You get 1 or 2 year FO over in flying one leg a month maybe, or 2 legs a month maybe. That the proficiency is not quite there, and actually a lot of experienced FOs that go over to that type of flying lose quite a bit of proficiency. So I think we have the ability to learn a lot quicker on our airplane than let's say an international pilot would. become more comfortable a lot quicker.
More opportunity because we're doing it over and over and over again in a short span of time.
I flew 37 legs in 12 days. Gives you. I don't think Nick flew 37 legs probably in the past 2 years.
I don't know. Is it a contest?
No, it is. It isn't. But there's just
yes, everything's a contest.
Yes, there's Steph. Mrs. Competitive.
I'm sorry, I'm not competitive at all.
Oh yeah, right. That's
Oh, good. I just made Jeff choke. Good.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. No, I'm not being competitive. I'm just using that as just a comparison.
Right.
So 37 bad landings. Oh dear.
Yeah. Something like that.
Touche. Where is it? There it is. Yeah. Nick, how you feeling? Feeling okay?
Yeah. It's
you want me to do the plane tail so you can?
That'd be nice. We have a chat about it, and then I'll probably drift off.
Excellent. All right. So now it's time for the best part of the show, which of course everybody knows. It's the old pilot's plane tail. Or should I say, the old pilot's plane tales.
The old pilot's plain tales. The court of public opinion. It was Napoleon Bonaparte who said, 4 hostile newspapers are more to be feared than 1,000 bayonets. A theme repeated by Oscar Wilde, who wrote, in the old days men had the rack, now they have the press. This is a sea of caution, not to help you avoid a flying mishap or disaster, but perhaps how to be careful with the fame you may achieve afterwards. It was the 1950s, and America had been through a world war and was now firmly stuck in a Cold War. McCarthyism had been rife, and hundreds of Americans had been accused of being communists or at least sympathetic with their aims. Suspicions and accusations could wreck someone's career, indeed their entire life. First Lieutenant Dave Steeves was a United States Air Force jet fighter pilot. He had achieved his childhood dream, and he was now an instructor pilot on the Air Force's new T-33A Shooting Star jet trainer. It was the 9th of May, 1957, when Lieutenant Steeves opened up the throttle of the Allison turbojet and sent his aircraft accelerating down the runway at Oakland's Municipal Airport near San Francisco, and then up into the high overcast over Fresno, Bakersfield, Riverside, and Blythe, en route to Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix. A little after 11 in the morning, he made a call to Fresno radio, reporting his position as overhead the city at 33,500 feet. On his left, below the clouds, lay the Sierra Nevada mountains, amongst which was Mount Whitney, which reached nearly 14,500 feet. He had been this way many times and had seen the rock and ice of the majestic Sierras, beautiful and awe-inspiring, but equally worrying to a pilot of early single-engine jets. Only a few months before, a fellow pilot, Glenn Sutton, had disappeared amongst the Sierras, and neither he nor his jet had ever been found. A few minutes south of Fresno, Steeves heard a boom from behind him before he was knocked violently unconscious. He came around to the smell of smoke. The aircraft was throwing him against his straps, and the stick was unresponsive. Still dazed and unsure of what was going on, he had to react quickly. He reached for the canopy jettison lever, and the protective perspex was blown clear of the cockpit. Moving his feet up into the stirrups of the ejector seat, he locked his straps and then reached for the pair of yellow arming handles fitted to the front of the seat. He raised them. Inside the right one was the firing lever, and squeezing it, he fired the explosive cartridge that punched him out of the aircraft. Once free of the seat, he could reach his parachute D-ring, and with a violent jolt, his chute popped open. Glancing up, he could see that there were some long rips in the orange and white fabric, but he didn't have long to fall before the rugged snow-cloud mountains came rushing up at him. Bracing, he hit hard on a bare patch of rock sticking out from a peak before spinning off and falling against the side of the mountain. Moments later, he stopped falling as his chute caught up in the rocks and ice above him. He was alive. Dave gingerly undid his harness and carefully untangled himself from the parachute straps. Leaning back against the steep slope, he looked down and realized he was on the edge of a snow-filled basin. But some ways below, he could see a sort of cove with some rocks and a couple of withered trees. He carefully clambered up to release his parachute, which he bundled up and threw down the slope, and then he started to climb down. He had to face the slope, digging hand and footholds and pausing often to warm his icy fingers. He wasn't dressed for this kind of an environment with a summer lightweight flying suit, a thin jacket and soft kid leather flying gloves that were soon worn through. It took him several hours to join his parachute, which had bounced and rolled some way away, but eventually he got a chance to rest, and the adrenaline that had kept him going drained out of his system. From where he lay, he still had a ways to go to get to the floor of the bin, and feeling cold and stiff, he rose to continue his climb down, but sharp pains from both ankles shot through his legs and he fell hard. For the first time in his ordeal, he began to fear that he might die in this cold and desolate place. The clouds had lowered, and he realized that no search aircraft would stand a chance of finding him. He was in a real survival situation, and he would need to summon up all his courage and skill if he wanted to live. He unbundled his parachute and made a rough sledge out of the seat cushion, gingerly sliding down until he eventually reached flatter ground. Once there, he crawled on his hands and right leg, dragging his more painful left leg behind him until he eventually managed to reach the cove that he had seen earlier. Kneeling with his hands, he dug a shallow pit under a fallen log, and he lined it with his parachute. As the sun started to fall, the temperature dropped dramatically, and he knew he needed a fire to stay alive. He used his knife to hack some of the rotted wood into small chunks, and then with a little paper, he managed to light a small fire in a nearby stump. As he laid back into his parachute with his feet towards the little smouldering fire, he contemplated his situation. After abandoning his aircraft, David didn't have much on him. His maps and many other things, like his military survival kit, had been lost during the violence of the ejection. He still had his Allen & Hopkins revolver, plus some extra bullets, his nail clippers, a few books of matches and some paper, but not much else, except his little radiation detector monitor in case of nuclear attack. David shivered his way through 3 freezing nights, and when the weak sunlight came through the overcast again, he knew that he had to move or he would die there in the snow, high amongst the mountains. Shaking the snow that had fallen during the night from off his parachute, he realized that his ankles were feeling a little better, so he began to move. Limping, sometimes crawling through the snow and rocks, he picked his way along a series of tiny ponds that showed him a way to lower ground. The movement warmed him, and he began to feel a bit better, particularly when the snow numbed his ankles. As the sun fell, he had left the basin and was heading down. The next few days were a nightmare. Hungry, and only eating snow, he stumbled onwards through the short days and then holed up to endure the long, cold nights. His strength was failing, but he knew to stop meant death. Occasionally, he found enough wood to make a real fire, but for most of the time, he awoke soaked and freezing cold. He was now following a river, and in a swampy grove where he saw some grouse tantalizingly close, he got his first break since the ejection. Beside the river, he saw a sign which read, "Simpson Meadow, 10 miles." With renewed energy, he pressed on, but then lost the trail in huge snowdrifts. Counting back, he realized, was it even possible, that he had been without food for 14 days. A few hours later, he blundered into a deserted campsite. He could see a storage cache out of reach high up in the trees, but he found a garbage pit, which he plundered. One of the cleaner tins had the remnants of some sticky syrup, which he greedily licked clean. Pressing on with heavy legs, he stopped to rest at noon, sitting down on a log and resting his bearded chin in his hands. Peering ahead through a break in the trees, he saw Salvation, a log cabin. Breathless from exertion, within a few minutes he reached the door. It was locked and no one came to his calls, and it took him hours, but eventually he managed to find a branch strong enough to breach the sturdy door. Inside, it was little more than a shed, but it was packed high with tools and equipment that the forest rangers had stored there, and on the wall, an inventory of the contents. Searching down the list, his eyes fell on the word foodstuffs. After a frenzied search, he found a couple of boxes which, for a starving man, were a treasure trove of beans, cornstarch, condiments, dehydrated soup, hash, and rice. David Steve had found Simpson Meadow Ranger Station, but his troubles were far from over. However, with the equipment and protection he found there, at least he wasn't going to die freezing up amongst the mountains. Freeing his feet from his boots for the first time in 2 weeks, he screamed in agony as they swelled up before his eyes. For 2 days he lay delirious in a fever, waking only long enough to eat the hash and make some soup while it snowed outside. When he was able to think clearly again, he assessed his situation. He found some maps and worked out that he was deep in the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. There was nothing resembling a town or even dwellings marked. Indeed, he was only 35 miles from Mount Whitney, the highest point in the United States. 2 trails led out, and after regaining some strength and carrying some of the more useful equipment he found, he set off down the Tehipite Valley. David's journey was far from over and would contain yet more drama. Facing sheer cliffs, hundreds of feet high, he needed to cross a strong river to continue. Swept from his feet in the icy cold water, he plunged down a waterfall and was lucky to escape with his life. The crossing proved pointless, as he was trapped by a dead end, and the weather began to turn. He tried to climb the rocks in front of him, but had to admit it was impossible, and he began the long trudge back to the ranger station. A month had now passed, and back in the hut he had to regain his strength. He fished and set up a crude trap for deer using his revolver. He had some success and tried to feed himself back to strength from the deer meat, but he knew he had to make another attempt at escape. Now out of bullets for his gun, in absolute desperation, he lit a forest fire. He knew this was a terrible thing to do, but surely someone would see the smoke and come to investigate. His blaze leapt from tree to tree, and for 5 days and nights it burned. An aircraft flew over, and he desperately signaled with a mirror, but to no avail. The days passed, and he knew he had to try to walk out again. Turning the other way, he had to climb a 10,000-foot ridge, but the weather was warming up and the snow starting to melt. He was shocked at how thin his arms and legs looked, but he pressed on, up and up over the high ground, drinking from streams and fighting the mosquitoes. He was sitting on a rock when he heard the voice, a woman's voice. She said, "Hello there." He must have looked a sight, filthy, ragged, scrawny, with matted hair, a straggly beard, and having lost 45 pounds of weight. He tried to explain, but was finding it hard to talk. The woman rode up along with other riders, and David knew he was saved. It took many days to get him out of the mountains and back to civilization, all the while excitedly trying to explain what had happened to him and how he had survived. Once the world found out that a heroic Air Force fighter pilot had survived ejecting from a crippled jet fighter and then survived 54 days in the wilderness, walking out of appallingly hostile, snow-covered terrain, it was a feeding frenzy. David was brought back to his family, who had been informed by the Air Force that he was missing, presumed dead. With his handsome, rugged good looks returning, and with his stunning wife on his arm, their fairy tale story was featured in all the major newspapers, and New York publishers were bidding for rights to publish. He attended many press conferences, and then, in a shiny new uniform, was flown to Los Angeles to appear on television. A few days later, he was flown back to New York for more interviews, television shows, and meetings with publishers. It was a whirlwind of activity that culminated with an offer from the Post editor, Clay Blair, for $10,000 for his story. However, when the story had been told over and over and spread far and wide, I wonder if the Post began to regret their offer as they saw the return on their investment diminishing day by day. David was taken back into the mountains and asked to recreate his journey, but it wasn't easy. With the snow gone and summer growth everywhere, the terrain looked very different, and he had difficulty retracing his steps. In addition, despite an extensive search, no trace of the crashed T-33 was found. Also, it appeared that David Steve's backstory wasn't that of the perfect Air Force jet pilot. He'd been unfaithful to his pretty wife before the crash, and their marriage had been on the rocks, with Rita seeking a divorce. His flying career hadn't been going well either. He had a reputation as an officer lacking respect for authority, and during instructor's school, he had only passed with a minimum satisfactory grading in his ground check. Abruptly, the Post withdrew its offer, and then began to run stories questioning the authenticity of David Steve's story. They found witnesses willing to question his account. Many lacked any credibility, like that of a pack driver who found some of David's belongings, and the park chief who claimed that his escape would have been extremely difficult. The Post also suggested that his boots weren't worn enough to corroborate his story, but it was mainly the lack of a crash site that brought David's story into question. The rumors grew, with some even claiming that David had flown his aircraft into Mexico so it could be handed over to the Soviets, and the whole survival story was an elaborate ruse. The Air Force stayed silent, and though no formal charges were brought, Lieutenant Steele requested a discharge, which was immediately granted. His career was ruined, and he had been branded a liar. David moved to Fresno and started an aviation firm that flew skydivers and modified aircraft. In his spare time, he would fly over the Sierras, trying to find his crash site and clear his name. A few years later, he was killed at the Boise, Idaho airport when he crashed a modified Stinson aircraft that he had been working on. It was after his death that some Boy Scouts from Los Angeles were on a hiking trip in Dusty Basin in Kings Canyon National Park. They came across the remains of an aircraft canopy, the perspex crazed and broken, but the frame was intact. The following year, it was announced that the serial number matched that of the missing T-33 shooting star that David Steves had been flying the day of his crash. Lieutenant David Steve had at last been vindicated, and his amazing story had been proven true 12 years too late.
Timing is everything.
Absolutely.
How sad, though.
It is sad. Nobody believes
No,
him.
no one believes him. And then, 12 years later, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Just kidding. We were
Yeah,
wrong.
despite all the facts that were really on his side, and the fact that it was the most remarkable survival story, 54 days, that's pretty impressive. Just because they couldn't find an airplane, well, there were plenty of airplanes that had gone missing at that, in that time of the reliability of aircraft being what it was. Many aircraft went missing, were never found. But the Post editor really had it in for him. And, he was turned from hero to villain almost overnight. Very sad.
Terrible.
Didn't you say at the beginning that that both of his feet were badly injured and he couldn't even walk on his feet?
They weren't broken, they were just badly strained. And in the 54 days, I guess they
got
recovered.
better.
Yeah,
Okay.
they weren't sufficiently injured for him to be had permanent injury. But that was his guess anyway, that they were just badly strained.
Did they ever find out what that explosion was and why the?
Nope. No, because there was they've never found the rest of the aircraft. They've only ever found the canopy.
Just the canopy.
So they weren't able to
Okay.
look at the wreckage and try and work it out. But
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh, I think the Russians in Mexico took that canopy and
Planted
made it
it.
look like it was.
could have well. The fact
Implanted it there.
the fact that America sold T-33s to the Mexican Air Force, of course, had nothing to do with it.
No,
Oh, yeah.
not at all. What?
Never
No.
mind.
Moving on.
Why would they want it anyway? The T-33. I mean, I guess it was a good airplane.
You know what I
it
think it
probably
was?
was.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty early version, and that was an argument. Lots of people said, "Well, why on earth would the Russians want a basic trainer?"
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and lo and behold, it didn't make sense. But people weren't that interested in it. It's like a lot of people where they love building up a hero, but when he is a hero, they start to look at him and think, he's not a hero, really. Let's pull him back down again. I don't know what it is. It's strange, isn't it? But you
Human
see it
nature.
happen. Yeah, I know. It's very.
You know why I think they couldn't find the rest of the plane?
Go on
You
then.
know what I think it was? Aliens.
Yeah. Well, it was probably quite close to Roswell. I don't know. Was it?
Well, it's not that far from Roswell, New Mexico. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You
see.
Got to be the aliens.
Could have been the aliens. Yeah, there was suggestion it was a depressurization or an engine failure or something, but no one really knows.
Wow, that was a very interesting story.
Oh, I love the story. Eric, thank you very much indeed for that suggestion. And
A little bit of
putting
mystery and conspiracy and intrigue and that kind of stuff. Always makes for a good story.
And I always like a good survival skill story because he did a good job.
Mm-hmm. Take note, Bear Grylls.
There you go. But I don't think Bear Grylls had a revolver with him.
Oh, probably not. Maybe. Probably not.
All right.
Right, guys, I'm going to take my cold to bed if that's all right. I'm feeling pretty ropey over here.
Yeah, it's getting late for you. Get some rest. That's always
feel better.
Yeah,
much better.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd like to point out that I am
I
supporting
noticed.
the other outfit for the second half of the show. Just
Yeah, the 2 minutes before you left.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
noticed. We noticed how you divided that time.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
We
All right,
do
everyone.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and I
Cheers,
look
Nick.
forward to chatting
Cheers,
again
Nick.
next week.
Feel better.
Okay.
Yeah, feel better. Good night.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. All right, let's move on with the second item in the news.
Oh, we've made it to number 2? Good.
Yeah, we're already on number 2.
We're way past our expectations here.
Yeah.
Dixon, we had talked about ramp stuff, ramp rats and that sort of thing. He says, "Hey guys, my name's Dixon. I'm a new listener to ABG. It's the perfect supplement for when I'm just chilling out at home or doing some studying. Piloting is something I've always had a passion for, but alas, I'm a college sophomore on the good old ramen noodle diet, so training is something that's got to wait. But I figured in the meantime, I might as well do the next closest thing. I've recently been hired by a fairly large ground services contractor, and I'm beyond pumped. My mom has always talked about when I was younger, I would jabber endlessly about how I was going to drive the tug, and lo and behold, it's becoming a reality. I do have some questions. Number 1, this is going to be my first foray into the world of manual labor. Up to this point, it's just been restaurant jobs and a little gig at a local airfield. That's Delta 52, Geneseo, New York. That's south of Syracuse, I believe, in the Finger Lakes.
Finger Lakes, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Finger Lakes.
I know you guys are primarily pilots and not rampers, but do you folks have any recommendations of what to not do so I don't become, quote, that guy? Well, you're in luck, Dixon, because I worked the ramp at Fixed Base Operations, FBOs, for life. And Dana, also, you were a ramper too, weren't you, for a time?
I was actually a ramper and ramp instructor and a ramp supervisor.
Well, I think you're just the person
Ooh.
to
Dixon,
inform Dixon.
Start taking notes. Start
Yeah.
taking notes, buddy.
What not to
writing,
do?
Dixon.
What not to do, Dana?
What not to do? Don't be that guy. No, I'm really only kidding.
Helpful. Very helpful.
Dixon, I'm going to be quite honest with you. You are looking at a very physical job. Not so much in the GA world, but as what was what you did, Jeff. That's what I was
right.
referring
We
to.
did actually occasionally. I have to defend myself. We would also be hired to do some of the charter stuff, like I remember
Business jets
DC-8
and-
coming in
oh,
from
okay.
Hawaii and offloading the bags and doing the typical ramp stuff that an airline ramper would do, but not all the time. You're right.
Yeah, not all. So, anyways, in all honesty, Dixon, it's all about your attitude, and you've got to understand that if you have a good attitude and get out there and have a good work ethic, that you will do fine. It's going to be days that you get out there and it's going to be raining and cold and snowing, and even though you have your rain gear on, it's still going to be very trying. And you got to understand the dynamics on the ramp. It's just like any place else. You get your strong people, your weak people, your people that are trying to dominate everything, and then you have to play the political game even on the ramp sometimes. I just know that there are going to be times, especially as a newbie, you're going to be put up in that bin and you're going to have to stack those bags, and it's a lot of work, hard work, and just know that you're going to go home sore. I'll probably lose a few pounds, and as long as you show up to work on time, do your job. The job itself is not rocket science. Just to show willingness to learn, and be there and be reliable. Those are the big things that they look for, because as a ramp person, which and listen, I used to work the ramp, and look where I am now, Dixon. So it can happen. And a lot of people that are motivated do go forward in this business, and just continue, keep your nose up and be proud and work hard. So hard work. That was his first question. Second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Do you want to read it?
I was going to ask the question and let you answer it.
Okay.
This is not a primary concern of mine, but is ramping in general a decent way to get the foot in the door as far as becoming an airline pilot goes?
Well, honestly, I already kind of answered that, but what it does is it gives you a good ground up feeling in knowledge of what it's like to work your way all the way up. So I think it's not the best route to the cockpit because, well, quite frankly, the best route to the cockpit is flying. You got to build your experience in flying and make that investment. But if you need to work, it's a great place for you to build your experience, understand what the operation's like, how things actually move in the business, and you do get some great experience. So I would agree that it's not a bad way to go, especially if you need to work for a while.
And it's a huge benefit to if you do finally make it into the pilot ranks, you'll have a really good perspective of what's happening down there on the ramp.
Correct.
Which is definitely a good thing. His last question, are there any unofficial or secret life hacks to make ramp life a little easier? Yeah, you go to that website, rampratlifehack.com. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think that exists. Dana, you need to set up that site.
Yeah, I'm going to set that up. Thank you for that idea, Jeff. I'm going to start charging $10 a month for membership to it. Yeah,
secret life hacks for ramp rats. Do you know any special secret life hacks? Probably not any.
Not really, other than make sure you have a good pair of knee pads.
Yeah,
because believe it or not, those bins are not nearly as tall as you think they'd be. You spend a lot of time on your knees, and one of the things that happens when you're on your knees in those bins is this sharp metal. There can be sharp metal, so be very careful when you get up there. I tend to use those work gloves from Home Depot to help protect my hands a little bit when I was up there. But it's something you're going. Oh, and a very good set of rain gear. You're gonna need that because it will definitely be out there.
Yeah.
Other than that,
when you said the knee pads, I thought, well, we're not going to talk about corporate politics here.
No, we're not, and and there's really a good use for them. So I have scars on my knees from being on the knees and the bellies of the 88s throwing bags, and I've been there, I've done it.
One of the nice things I think about, sorry to interrupt you there, Dana, about the life of a ramper is the fact that you get to spend 90% of the time outside. But that's also one of the downsides.
You don't get a choice of when you can be outside. It's just all the time. Not just on the nice days, when it was like today here, mid-70s, low humidity.
Yeah, it was a perfect
sunny
day. Yeah.
It was great. I'd have loved to have been outside all day today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's exactly correct, Dixon. If you kind of read between my lines, I was encouraging you to get some good rain gear because you will need. Sorry.
That's right.
So
that's good. Part of the ambiance.
Yeah, the ambiance of my wife just showing up to pull dinner out of the oven.
We always know when Julie's home.
Well, it's time for me to jump out the window now.
Uh-oh.
But no, I'm not going to do that.
Wait a minute. You're not supposed to leave, Dana.
Yeah, not you.
He's gotten this all wrong.
Exactly.
We'll fill you in on how this works later.
Please do. I would appreciate.
You throw the computer and the microphone out the window. That's what you got to do.
That's right. You have to throw us out the window.
Yes, there we go.
Are you doing that podcast thing again? No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Don't worry about it. Just the computer crashing out the window.
Don't worry about that, honey. I just threw $3,000 out the window. No problem.
It's fine.
Yeah, I was working extra green slip. Oh yeah, I never get those, by the way. Yeah, so that's my advice to Dixon. Good luck, congratulations, and write back in and let us know how you do it and how you doing and how you like it out there. It can be challenging. I'll be straight up and honest with you, Dixon. It's some people out there can be not so happy, and sometimes and then you get the people who are really happy and go lucky, and those are the people that tend to hang around and work their way up in the business. So I don't know how I'm still here.
And
I'm like, hey,
I think that Dana is obviously not the first person in the world and not the last to be a ramp worker and then somewhere along the way a pilot. So
correct. And lots of success to you, Dixon, and look forward to hearing about your journey.
In fact, I think we have at least one, maybe more APG community members that we're working the ramp and now are in training to be pilots. So, yeah. Let us know, as Dana said. Great. Thanks for the expert advice, Dana.
I don't know anything.
Oh, you're not off the hook yet, though, because we have more ramp stuff.
Oh,
this is
do
the
we?
ramp segment. Rob writes, I've been listening for about 2 years and eagerly await each episode. My dad was a Navy pilot, so I was exposed from my early years to aviation. Several of your episodes have touched on the ramp workers or ramp rats, and I know Captain Dana used to supervise the baggage handlers back in the day. So I wondered about the origin of the term, since the only ramp I ever saw was the conveyor belt for loading and unloading bags. As it turns out, the term is a leftover from the seaplane days, when the aircraft powered up the ramp to get to the airport. The ramp term is used by ATC, but not used by the FAA. That's interesting. Apron is another term for ramp, of course, and that term makes more sense and is used by the FAA. The FAA's Surface Movement Guidance and Control System Advisory AC number 120-57A defines the apron as a defined area on an airport intended to accommodate aircraft for purposes of loading or unloading passengers or cargo, refueling, parking, or maintenance. Lastly, tarmac, T-A-R-M-A-C, is the material sometimes used for runways and aprons, but concrete is more typical. But calling the apron the tarmac is like calling the parking lot, or the car park for Nick, the concrete. Also, ask Captain Dana, if he ever used the term found in the Urban Dictionary for baggage handlers. We always have to throw out a caution when you're referring to the Urban Dictionary. Okay, cover up the ears, mom and dad, if you have kids listening to the podcast. Okay, here's the term. Pitch bitch. Have you ever heard of that, Dana?
I have never heard that term.
I haven't either.
Ever.
No.
Steph, have you?
No.
No.
I've heard baggage thumpers.
Yeah?
I can see where it comes from, but I think maybe that was just one person making an entry into the Urban Dictionary, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, not a commonly used term. Attached are a couple of World War II photos of interest, probably especially to Captain Nick. 11 Navy pilots, one was my dad, were temporarily assigned to the Army Air Corps in World War II in 1944 to support the invasion of southern France and were stationed in Corsica. They flew P-51C Mustangs that were brand new, and they were thrilled to be able to name their planes. My dad borrowed a 35mm camera from a bomber pilot to take these photos. Before he could return the camera, the bomber was shot down and all perished in the crash. So my sister still has the camera. And then he has these pictures here and some descriptions for why what the name is referencing and such. And they're all great photos, including the photo of his do you say his dad? Yeah,
his dad.
Valgal was his dad's plane name.
It was my dad's plane.
My dad's plane, named for his mom. Wow. Very cool. So obviously, this is from Rob Snowden in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you, Rob, for sending these great photos in. That is definitely going to be something you're going to want to refer to, listener, in the show notes. Please click on the link. It'll take you right to this item that we're looking at ourselves. The crew is looking at right now. Great photos, huh?
Yeah, fantastic photos. I was just picking up on the Valgal.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it say Valgal 2?
Maybe there was more than one Valgal.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Valgal 2. Interesting.
The
Presumably I'm sorry. Presumably he was okay, obviously. But I don't know what happened to Valgal 1.
Yeah, I don't know. Really, really cool stuff.
Awesome.
So,
photos.
Again, please refer to the show notes, ladies and gentlemen, listening to the show. And I think you'll enjoy them as much as we have. And thank you, Rob, again, for that. Anything else that we didn't answer? No, we'd never heard of that term, PB. And interesting information about ramp. I didn't know that it referred to the seaplane ramps. Interesting.
No.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay.
I mean, it's like saying you park your car in the driveway and you drive on the parkway.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Nope.
Who was the guy
Yay,
that
English.
Who was the guy that Yogi Berra? I think was that
Yeah,
one of his
probably.
moments? Why do we park in the driveway and drive in the parkway? All right, let's continue on with Brian. He sent us some audio feedback.
Hey, Captain Jeff and APG crew. This is Brian from Tulsa. I want to start off by saying that I regret not being able to make the Tulsa meetup this time around.
Me too.
I will definitely be at the next one, though. And just have a quick question for you guys. We are leaving in May. I think on the 9th, we're going up to Maine to visit family. And I've got a 6-month-old lap child that'll be going with us, my daughter. And when I went to make the reservation, I chose seats on the left side and right side of the aircraft. And then I was informed by people on forums and such that you need to call the airline to inform them that you're carrying a lap child as well. So I did. I called the airline, and what she did is all the seats that I had chosen on the left side of aircrafts for all of our flights, regardless of aircraft type, she moved us over to the right side. It was the same, window and middle, but it was the right side instead of the left. So I'm wondering why that was, and I have a suspicion it might have something to do with oxygen masks. But my father-in-law and my dad are both AMTs for Ajax, and they seem to think that the oxygen is the same on both sides of the aircraft, and they seem like somebody that would know. So I was wondering if you had any insight into that and what your opinions were. And then also, what are your tips for flying with a lap child and infant? Being that this is my first time around, I'm kind of a little apprehensive about doing it and being that guy that's got a screaming child for, however long the flight is. All right. Well, thank you guys for all you do. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Excellent questions, Brian. And what I'm going to do, since he's leaving in just a couple of days, and I may not have the episode published by then, and I'll try the recording right now and send it directly to Brian. So he'll have our wonderful answer regarding his questions. And the first thing, obviously, everyone knows, Brian, that the right side of the aircraft, those little oxygen masks are a little bit smaller on the right side than they are on the left. They're better to fit around the baby's. No, I don't know.
Is that because the airplane's heart is on the left side of the airplane's body?
Must be. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah. I think, your relatives who are AMTs, I think that Dana, right? I mean, there's no difference between the left side and the right side of the aircraft as far as where you're sitting. I'm not sure why they did that.
I have no earthly idea why they did that. None.
Yeah. So we can't help you out with that one, but what we can do is we can give you some advice with traveling with infants. And first of all, let me tell you, and I've had experience with this with 3 children of my own. The noise, and this is not in just an airplane, but in church or any other public venue where the sound levels are a little bit lower and you want to keep that low level as much as you can. Well, you're gonna think that when your child is making a lot of noise, crying or whatever else, that it's just something that everybody's focused on and everybody wants to kill you because you can't keep your child quiet. Now, there might be some people out there that like that actually do think that. And we've seen instances of that on our show where people have been kind of rude toward not only the parents of the children, but also the children themselves. Remember the guy that actually hit a child? I think he was.
No, I don't remember
yeah,
that.
it was a guy that actually from Atlanta, and he spent some time in jail too, I think, for it. Actually hit the child. But anyway, that's not very common. Don't worry. Don't be freaked out. I don't think anybody's going to hit your child. But I think that the sense that everybody is really irritated is like exaggerated in your own mind. Most people, I think, are very understanding. They understand that you can't control what a child's going to do and whether they're going to cry or not, but at least make an attempt. That's the thing I think that irritates a lot of passengers is when the children are just crying or they're doing something very loudly or irritating other passengers around them, and the parents make zero attempt to stop that behavior. That's something that I think is a reasonable thing to be upset about. But one of the things that you can do, obviously, something to distract the child, some kind of a puzzle, some type of a, something on a tablet or device or something like
Is this
that.
a
If they're
6-month-old?
oh, never mind. Yeah, they're not going to.
Am I misremembering?
Yeah,
Don't
no, you're
embarrass
not.
me. Okay.
So, what would you say? Something to focus their attention on the fact that they're away from the fact that they're in an airplane and this is all a new environment and they're hearing things that they don't normally hear, etc. So probably not a lot to do with a child, a very young child like an infant. But I was going to say,
I would
my advice.
recommend. Do they still recommend for very young children giving them a bottle on takeoff and descent so
Yeah,
that
because
they
that's
can
going.
equalize their air pressure, the pressure in
Yeah.
their ears?
Yes, I was going to say chewing gum, but never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When they're a little bit older, when they're
teeth.
toddlers or young children, sometimes giving them chewing gum will do the same thing that what Steph is referring to as far as equalizing pressure. And that they're usually okay when you're climbing, but
It's
as you
descent.
start descending and the cabin pressure is changing in that direction, that's
But
when
it may also keep them a little more occupied and help lull
Yeah.
them off to sleep, perhaps, if they're
right. But I think
feeling
for me, the
insecure.
bottom line is that yes, you're going to be like just terrified that your child is going to disturb the other passengers. And I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. But do make an attempt and make sure that people know you're making an attempt to, keep your infant quiet if they are crying or whatever. And as Steph said, a bottle or breastfeeding. Now that's kind of a sensitive area, but if you can do it, if your wife is breastfeeding, I'm sure there's a way to do it discreetly. And I think most people these days understand that, wouldn't you think, Steph?
You would think.
Yeah. Maybe not. Good luck with that, I guess.
You would think.
Because
But
we
it was
have
actually
had stories on
Yeah.
the show where people have actually
should not
objected.
even be an issue, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the extra mask. Isn't there one on each?
there's an extra mask in each row. There's 4 masks in
Yeah.
each row.
Yeah, it's not on
But
one side,
regardless
yeah.
of whether it's left or
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
As
And
far as I know.
they're all the same size. Yes.
Maybe tomorrow I'll look in the airplane. Let me lower this thing, see how many masks we have up there. But I think it's the same on both sides, as far as I know.
There should be 1 extra.
One extra on each side.
Yeah. But I mean, but equal, same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Left or right, it shouldn't matter. Okay.
It should not matter at all.
Okay. Any other advice that you all can think of? Let me look at the chat room to see if anybody is.
I have no kids,
Well-
so I have no idea.
I don't have kids either, but I actually agree with what Main Man Micah is saying. If you have the means to purchase a seat for your child at any age, I'm not a huge fan of the lap child under 2 policy that a lot of U.S. airlines have for a variety of reasons. He's making the point about the child potentially being a projectile. I think it is a safety thing. If you put your child in a car seat in a car, I don't know why it shouldn't be the same for an airplane.
Yeah, it's very true.
And Micah, a bottle of bourbon in the milk bottle is not a good. Oh no, wait, no, he's not saying a bottle.
I said that. No, I really didn't actually.
I also understand that air travel is expensive and sometimes you need to get from point A to point B and it is allowed. So I would just say take whatever safety precautions that you can.
Right. Okay. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Dana?
I was going to say, there's some people that show up at the airport with their lap child expecting that there's going to be an empty seat, possibly.
Yeah,
Right.
just to expect that you may potentially be carrying that child and probably will be carrying that child on your lap for the duration of the flight. So if that is not something that you were exactly expecting, yeah, that it could happen.
That's
and
a good
probably
point.
will.
Yeah. If you're going to have a lap child and you're not paying for the seat, well, don't expect that they're going to give you the seat for nothing.
Right.
Good point. Okay, but I don't think Brian would think that.
No, I don't think he's thinking that, but I'm
just putting
Dana-
that out there for the general public.
Yeah.
That's
I
listening
agree.
to this conversation.
Very good. Anything else to add, do you think?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
So hopefully I'll get that to you, Brian, before you leave on your trip. Moving on. Greg, has a subject that is very popular, especially with one of our community members who works at a medium-sized Midwestern airport. The topic, actually not, because these are built-in ones, so I don't think she feels the same way about those, does she? The topic of air stairs comes up every now and then on the show, so I thought I'd pass along a photo of a 737 that comes through STL, St. Louis, pretty often. It's a new 737 Boeing business jet. You can see it deploying the air stairs on the ramp of Signature Aviation in St. Louis this past February. Keep up the good work, Greg McFadden. Correction to my previous feedback on the 737. Oh, that was the first feedback, and then he sent another email to us. Correction. It's registered to Boeing aircraft. It's not new, as previously stated. It seems to be 19 years old. Now my accuracy rating is back above 50%. Thanks, Greg McFadden.
Well done, Greg.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good
It
recovery.
was close there for a moment.
The thing does look pretty darn new, though. I mean, it must have a
Yeah.
nice
No,
new paint job or something on it.
Of course,
Well
it's a
taken care of.
business
Yeah.
jet. They're gonna
It's
take extra nice
washed
care of that.
You got all the
regularly.
money. Make it all shiny.
I mean, if
Wow.
you look out in the street and you see a limousine parked next to a bus, which one do you think is going to be nice, polished, and shiny?
The bus, of course.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll put his
Jeff's expectations are not in line with reality.
I don't think so.
my brain is just the older I get, it's just limping along. All right, Jim writes in, greetings APG crew. As recently as this week, the topic of hypoxia was covered on the show. I was very pleasantly surprised to receive the attached announcement from our local FAA safety team. In a nutshell, local pilots will have the opportunity to experience a hypoxia simulation. I'm sharing this in hope that other U.S. APG community members can check with their local FAA safety team to see if similar training is available to them. Keep up the great work. And here is the article, the announcement from the FAA. FAA safety team, Safer Skies Through Education. A scheduled seminar meeting your notification. Training. And this one happens to be in the Philadelphia, right here where I am, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at Legacy Aviation. And seats are still available, at least when he received this. This is for Wednesday, May 15th. So if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're interested in attending this seminar about hypoxia recognition, check out the show note here. And again, that's on the 15th. But he also mentioned, if you're in the U.S., you should sign up for these things so that if something like this happens in your area, you should go to it, because recognition of hypoxia could save your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting way that they do it. It is I lost what the acronym actually stands for. Portable Reduced Oxygen Training Enclosure. So it's basically this portable room that they set up with some glass walls and doors, and they adjust the oxygen levels down to different altitude, or what you might find at different altitudes within that enclosure. And then they do have oxygen masks for you to wear when you start suffering the effects of hypoxia.
I remember
and can no longer carry on with the tasks given to you, such as counting backwards by 3 from 100 or doing simple puzzles.
I can't even do that when I'm not hypoxic.
That's a hard one for me. By threes, I have trouble.
Or doing the alphabet backwards.
Yeah, no.
No. So I was thinking about what you were just saying in this PROTE thing. I remember there was an incident once, instead of oxygen, they were using laughing gas. It didn't turn out very well.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yes.
What about it was a blast. Everybody was laughing their heads off.
A little nitrous.
I've never had nitrous.
I have once.
Is it as great as everybody says it is?
No.
Well, the big mistake the dentist's office made is they put me on it and then walked away.
What happened in the meantime?
And they did that a few times.
And
because I'm really hard to get numb. So with the injections.
That's what she said.
So I turned the gas up.
Oh,
and oh my god, I was
but it was after you had already had some gas.
Well, I continued to have it, because it has.
So your ability to judge how much more you might or might not need was
it was
not at all impaired.
It was impaired at no, not at all. So I was the funniest guy on the planet at that moment. I could not stop laughing, and I kept on cracking jokes, and I had the whole place cracking up. They didn't even realize it.
Yeah, they had
then
no
they
idea
looked at it and they said, "Holy camole, dude!" Yeah, that's. Oh my god, I couldn't stop laughing. But I didn't care about the procedure. That was the best part.
That's the important.
Yeah,
thing.
that is what.
Yeah, just rip them all out.
I don't care what you're doing right now.
I mean, it's no kidding. The dentist can hit me with 8 to 10 Novocaine shots and still not get me numb. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
And this is not with just one dentist.
I was going to say, is this the same dentist over and over again?
Nope. It's now happened with 4 different dentists.
Your nerves are not where they're supposed to be then.
I have no nerve.
Oh, the nerve.
Oh, the nerve.
The nerve you don't have. 8. This should be a quick one, I think. My name is Devin Porter. I live in the Houston area. I want to become a pilot, and I was wondering if you could point me in the right direction. Again, if you're watching, Devin, this way.
Up.
All right. Let's move on to number 9. No, I'm just kidding.
This corner.
This corner over here. I'm 25 years old, and I'm hoping to get my private license within the next year, but unfortunately, I don't know which school to go with. Now, I don't know if we have any specific recommendations for Devin in the Houston area, but maybe we do have some listeners.
Houston, you're a problem.
And Houston's a big place. It's like one of the biggest cities in the U.S., I believe. Definitely in the top 10.
Devin,
so
it kind of comes down to part 61 versus part 141.
And what's the difference?
Getting those right there, Dana.
Yep.
So part 141 is going to be more structured. The hour requirement for private pilot training does come down some, but there is, it's just much more structured. There's certain checkpoints you have to hit, and you'll be going to ground school, and it's more like being in a school environment, of a formal school environment. Part 61, which is what I did, it's a little more freelance. You kind of take things at your own pace. The hour requirement is slightly more by 5 hours, I believe, in terms of the minimum number of hours that you would need for a private pilot license. However, that still varies greatly, no matter which direction you go, depending on when you're ready to take your check ride. A lot of it just comes down to what type of student you are. So for me, I was working full-time at the same time. I didn't have time for a more structured, formal environment where I'd be required to be in class at certain times, or, be meeting certain check marks at certain times. And it allowed me to do a lot of self-study as well, which is good for me, but might not be good for others. So
my advice, Devin, is this. First off, the airport that's closest to you that has a good general aviation operation, if you're just looking to become a private pilot, what Dr. Steph was saying is excellent advice. 61 versus 141. I would focus more on what's closer to you that will enable you to spend more time at the airport and not be discouraged, have to drive an hour through traffic or 2 hours through traffic to get there. So if you're just looking to do your private license, I would go meet the folks at the local airport. And generally speaking, there's usually more than one flight school. So it's who you go to and how you feel when you talk to them. And, and the biggest thing is the quality of the flight instructor.
Yeah. You want someone that you get along with, that you
exactly.
like, and who's in tune with your learning style.
Yep. And I hate to say this, but, a lot of flight instructors are, just building time to get out the door. So one of the things that you have to look at is if you are if you don't have a consistent flight instructor to help, move you through, then that actually may cost you some time and money, because if you have to go from flight instructor to flight instructor to flight instructor, you kind of have to start over. Now, the advantage of a 141 program over 61 is that you're going to be in a structured program, so it almost doesn't matter as much with the flight instructor because it is a structured program. But again, there's personality issues and getting along with somebody. So it's just like if you go to anything in customer service, they should be there to help you out. And don't try to overthink what the person's trying to sell you, because they are trying to sell you what their product is in their flight school. And take a look at the quality of the equipment, take a look at the track record of the flight school, and again, that can all be obtained locally. Now, if you want to move on professionally, that's a whole different conversation we need to have. So I'd be interested to know that part of this question, because you just put in that you want your private license. So
yeah. Well, staying on that same theme, part 141 schools, Connor, the ramp rat guy, says it's Connor the ramp rat again. I've heard people going to these big schools such as ATP, Embry-Riddle. Like I said before, I'm going to a 141 school, and like I said before, I'm going to a 141 school and can seem to only get about half of the tuition covered and the rest out of pocket, and that's around $5,000 plus. And I'm wondering what would be better in the long run, if it would be better to try and continue on in this 141 school or try to go for ATP. I don't know much about ATP, so maybe I can get some insight if ATP has loans that cover the cost of all ratings up to CFI, CFII, MEI, or would it put me more in financial trouble after I get out? Thanks.
Well, Connor, my suggestion is what is your ultimate goal? First off, do you already have a college degree? If you have a college degree, then the fast track, if you want to become an airline pilot, then I would go ahead and try to go for the fast track. Now, ATP is more likely, or something along, a school along those lines. There are other ones out there, are more likely to have financing options, and I don't think it'll put you in financial trouble unless there's a major downturn in hiring. So even if there is a downturn on the hiring, flight instructors are still going to be needed for some time, because there's been such a drain on them anyways that you can certainly, you won't be making big money as a flight instructor, but certainly you can make ends meet. But I would pick the fast track, because as we've talked about before in the podcast, is everything's about seniority in this business. So the faster you can get your foot into the door to a 121 carrier and move your way up through the regionals or flying corporate, then you get to the majors. That's when you definitely your financial troubles, as long as you keep your nose clean and fly a good airplane and stay out of trouble, then your financial troubles should come to an end, and be able to pay back those loans. So that's just my thought on that.
Yeah.
Conversely, if it's more of a matter of, even with tuition assistance and loans not being able to cover the costs, I would say maybe you do want to look at Part 61, because then it's really more pay as you go. And speaking from personal experience, you can still get through your ratings relatively quick. Depends on how much time you have available to set aside to things. And then looking at the stuff like Dana mentioned before, in terms of getting in with an instructor who's a good match for you, because you'll get through the requirements a lot more quickly if you're working efficiently during the time that you have. And potentially cheaper, because you're spending a little less time, perhaps.
And regarding the the getting the ratings or getting the college degree, as Dana mentioned, I would say now, in the past I wouldn't have said this, that I think it's more important to get all the ratings and everything, get your foot in the door, get hired by a regional, because I think most regionals now don't require college degrees, right, Dana?
None of them do.
Okay, none of them do. Now you're getting, the good experience, the racking up the time to be qualified for the airlines. And at that point, if the majors are still requiring college degrees, and I think at some point they're probably going to say, it's not so important anymore. But if they are, then when you're at the regional, I know it might be tough, but start working on your college
Yeah.
degree at that point.
If you're that motivated, it's certainly something that's within anyone's reach.
Yes.
Yeah, and
It's
you've
just
got to
hard work.
you would definitely have to be disciplined to do that. And just know that if you right now in the current hiring environment, if you don't have a college degree, you're not competitive. I've got my real good buddy Dave that has 20 years at the regionals, instructor pilot, and the list goes on of all of his achievements, and he still couldn't get to even barely. He only got one interview at a major, and they harped on the fact that he didn't have a college degree. So, the other thing is you're better off in the world in general if something should ever happen with the aviation end of things, medical or whatever else that could possibly end that, and that avenue of a career for you, a career path. So it's always better to have a college degree. I agree with you, Jeff, to a certain extent. However, and I agree that it's good to get the flying and get that going, but it's going to take quite a bit of work. And the way that they're hiring right now, you may be at a major within 3 years.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you take 4 years to get a college degree,
right?
What's the hiring going to be like then? And then you're going to start your flying training, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree, dude.
hard
If you
call.
can, if there's nothing hindering you from flying right this moment, fly and work on the college degree once you have that seniority number.
I mean, I realize he didn't really ask that question. What?
Money.
Yes,
That's what's
money.
hindering him right now is money.
Right.
Yeah, I know. That's why.
That was
That's
his
why I
big
would say I
concern
would
right
not.
now.
I would not. I would prioritize, certainly.
Yeah, as I said, Connor really didn't mention wasn't really even asking for that advice, but we gave it to you anyway.
Yeah, that's our free advice.
Yeah, exactly how much you paid for this podcast. Nothing. We're going to skip around a little bit. We're getting close to the end, and I think some of these, it would be best for Nick to be present to help us answer. So I would really like to make sure we get to this one. I thought it was pretty funny. Deanna, she sent us some audio feedback about her trip to Atlanta and her time in the simulator and such.
Nice.
And she obviously has a very good sense of humor. 16. If it isn't too soon after my previous feedback, I thought I'd share my experience in being an emotional support human. Trademark. She put a little trademark sign. Emotional support human for a fearful flyer. I don't recall hearing anything about fear of flying recently, so I thought it might be interesting. I recently went on a business trip, and my coworker who went with me had never flown before and was a little nervous about it. I talked to her about it, what to expect from to the eight, explained what the takeoff and landing felt like, and that the flaps made a sound when extended. She did great and actually enjoyed flying. We had beautiful views of the clouds, and she was amazed at how pretty it was up there. The only thing I forgot to mention was that the landing gear made a sound when it was put down, and I saw her eyes get really big when it happened, but she was fine when I told her it was normal. We had a nice, smooth ride to our destination. On the way back, naturally, the instant I left to use the bathroom, we encountered some mild turbulence, and I was worried she'd be scared. However, she reported that since no one else seemed freaked out, she figured it was okay. On our final leg home, we encountered a crosswind on takeoff, which tried to kick us around a bit, but the pilot handled it beautifully, and my friend was okay. Since she has faced her fear, she realizes how much the world has opened up and wants to start planning trips. How do you handle fearful passengers? Do you often encounter people who are so fearful they can't be calmed? What do you do? Now, before we get onto that, I guess I should say the feedback that she sent in right before that one, maybe I should have read this one first, but this is the one that got me chuckling. She said, this isn't necessarily feedback you have to talk about on the show. Yeah, we're going to talk about it, Deanna, because it was funny. But I thought it was kind of funny. I'm taking a trip to the conference with a coworker, the above mentioned, and it's her first time on an airplane. She's a little scared, so I talked to her a bit about what turbulence is like and what sensations to expect during takeoff and landing. We aren't seated together, unfortunately, but I'm hoping the gate agent can help us change since I'm her emotional support human. Trademark. Anyway, she wondered what our aircraft looks like. So I told her to Google image search the types we were on. I later Googled it myself, and this was one of the first images. I think it will help a lot. You got to see this.
That was funny. I saw that.
So she Googled, obviously they're on an RJ, what is that, a 900, 700, something like that?
That's not a 900.
It's like a CRJ 700.
700 maybe.
700, I think.
Yeah. And it's a nice picture of the wing, the left wing and back toward the engine and the tail. And there's a passenger apparently in the midst of running away from the airplane, because if you look at the left engine, it is there are flames coming out of the
on fire.
intake, and there are flames
Fire on
on
the ground, too.
It's just yeah, here, Google this, and it'll make you feel better. It'll help a lot. That's what I thought was so funny. Anyway, so how do you handle fearful passengers? And do you often encounter people who are so fearful that they can't be calmed? What do you do? I don't know. But yeah, I guess you have to use psychology, right, Steph?
I use this every day at my job. It has nothing to do with flying. Most people are fearful about the injection that I'm about to give them, including Jeff. I find that explaining exactly what you did, Deanna, explaining what they're going to experience before they actually get there, trying to lay the scene for them, tell them what sensations to expect, reassure them that my job is to make sure that it's as comfortable for them as possible. And if I do my job well, it should be somewhere in a comfortable range for them. As I'm actually doing the procedure, this is a little different than flying, but I think you handled it wonderfully as an emotional support human. You just reinforce that. You reemphasize what's going on, what's happening, what you're going to feel next. And it's the very rare person that I can't get through a procedure. Now, I have had people who are so fearful that they can't be calmed. And perhaps those are the passengers you just don't take flying that day. If they can't be calmed down enough to get on an airplane, they probably shouldn't be on the airplane. Same thing goes true for a procedure in medicine. If they can't be calmed down about it, we shouldn't be doing the procedure. So,
I've seen passengers get on the airplane and all of a sudden they're leaving, and I think, well, what's going on? And they said they tried. They are very, they have a lot of anxiety, and they were giving it the best try they could, and they were just sitting
couldn't
there.
do it. Yep.
Nope. Said, nope, can't do it.
And in those
I'm outta here."
cases, you just reassure the person, because a lot of times they're embarrassed that they weren't able to do something that they felt like maybe they should be able to get through. And you say, no, look, this is fine. Like, it doesn't have to be today. You can try again in the future.
Okay. I'm bad with my bad. Everything is.
Sorry. Go ahead. We can hear you now.
It's not your fault. It's my hotel fault.
Yeah.
So I have had instances where, like, a flight attendant will come in, into the cockpit and say, "Hey, I have so and so here," and they're a little anxious about flying and everything else. And I'm sure, Dana, you've experienced this as well. And what I usually say is, look, so first of all, I say what kind of experience I've had. I flew in the Air Force, or I've been flying for the last almost 38 years. I have over 20,000 hours of time in an airplane. And if I thought that this was something that was dangerous or that would risk my life and would not allow me to come back to my family, my wife and my children, I wouldn't do it either. But obviously, I feel like this is what I do, almost every day. And, I understand your anxiety, but because this is probably something that you are not used to doing or experiencing. And then I find also, as you mentioned, Steph, that like explaining to them what is going on. I think knowledge, for most people that have anxiety, I think knowledge is something that does help calm
for most people. It's very helpful.
Yeah, not everybody.
Not everybody. I mean, there are some fears that truly people cannot get past, and it's always a little surprising to me, because I like to think that I can probably get past almost anything with the right explanation, the right support. There aren't too many things I'm terribly fearful of. There's a few.
What?
Yeah. I don't like unprotected heights. Not
unprotected heights, like over the edge
like
of something.
standing on the edge of a mountain. not without anything preventing me from hitting the ground below.
Now, if you had a parachute on your back, you probably would feel
I'd
better.
be less fearful of it. Yes.
No base jumping then?
That's not really something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
No. But so I don't like those things, but it doesn't mean that I haven't been near the edge of a mountain, usually on skis. But it's something that you just have to say, look, this is no different than when you just, and it's really for me, it's the long distance view of something very straight down. I'm like, you're just on level ground right here. This is no different than level ground anywhere else. Just because if you took one more step forward, it would not go well. Doesn't mean that you have to take that step forward or are going to take that step forward. Right. So that's the rationalization part of it. But this year, for the very first time, I had someone have a panic attack to the point of causing them to have a vasovagal reaction and pass out before we ever got to the point of having the procedure or getting anywhere near doing the procedure. So that was a new one. And I'm only chuckling just because it was very surprising to me. I'm certainly not laughing at the person or the patient, because it was definitely a very serious thing for them. So, and then they, if I recall correctly, this person felt terrible. But I mean, again, you just have to.
Is it possible for somebody like that to go under like a general anesthesia? Or
yeah, and
something?
that's not general anesthesia, but in those cases, I do send them to have the procedure done with an anesthesiologist who's qualified to give more sedation than I am, and I don't give any sedation. So,
because she likes giving pain.
It's all about the backstabber.
Well, I have a whole lot to say about that, but this is not the.
We're joking.
No, I know. I mean, those are the cases where sedation is appropriate, but it's certainly not appropriate for the vast majority for the procedures I do.
Yeah. Jeff, and not change the subject back to what we were talking about.
Yes, sorry.
No.
Flying.
Back to flying. I find that in those situations, when the captain comes and talks or addresses the person, it tends to ease them a little bit. My favorite saying is, my mother's favorite son's on board the aircraft. That's me. And well, that's not really true, but anyways,
don't tell him that part. Well, that's
no, I say no. Her only son's on the airplane, so I'm going to do everything to take care of you, and it's very safe. You drove here. And that's far more dangerous than it is to get on the airplane, and it's a very safe way to travel. And you just talk to the people, and then they see that you're a human being, that you're down to earth. And generally speaking, I've had very few instances where people have ever wanted to get off the air. Well, they see me when I get up and make my PA, they all want to get off the airplane. But
oh my gosh,
yeah, I
gotta get off.
Yeah,
I tried. Then I saw Dana. I gotta get out of here.
Gotta get out of here. So, but yeah, that's comforting to them, and I haven't had anybody get off my airplane actually recently.
Interesting. Good. There are people out there. I'm sorry. Are we back in sync?
Yes, you're back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interestingly, there are a lot of people that listen to our show who do have moderate anxiety or worse. And the reason why they're listening, and you're listening to us here, me speaking to you right now, we know who you are, that they listen to the show, and they've sent us feedback saying so, that listening to the show, learning about flying and the sounds we're going to hear, and understanding all of this, what they consider magic, but then they realize it's not magic. It's physics and mechanical engineering and all that kind of stuff, aerodynamic engineering. And also the fact that hearing us talk about things about not only just flying, but our lives, and makes them realize, oh, we're regular people too, for the most part. And,
definition of regular is.
Yeah, let's redefine that, please.
Okay, let me use some air quotes when I say regular or normal people. But, we're like just their neighbors or the people they know at church or whatever group they happen to be in, and they go, or the people they work with, and they go, okay, they're okay. And they do this all the time, so it must not be so bad or so unsafe. And that really helps a lot of people. And so for all of you out there listening to my voice right now, we're glad you're there listening. We're hoping that you'll learn something about this flying thing and also be entertained by our banter.
Indeed.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. With that, we're getting awfully close to our 3-hour point, so we're going to go ahead and put an end to this madness on this show, episode 374, recorded on the 6th of May, 2019. And we're going to tell you to go to our website, airlinepilotguy.com. It's a great place to learn about the crew and the community. Let's see what else we have: merchandise, coffee fund information, Plain Tales, a dedicated page for that. We have the APG library, who is Tiffany is the one that manages that. If you're into reading great works of fiction and nonfiction related to aviation. And what else? Well, a lot more stuff there. So check it out, airlinepilotguy.com. And we're also on social media.
Ooh, we're back to the formal
I
social
knew you'd
medias.
be impressed with that.
I was.
Or the social meds.
I just
I
crack up
couldn't
at
help
that every
myself.
time. I know. Let me help you. I'll move on here.
Okay.
For the social media or social meds, I don't really, whichever one you prefer. It's fine
I
by
hear
me.
she says it all the time when we're not on there.
Yeah. I'm hip. I'm cool. It's cool.
Yeah, she is.
You can head over to twitter.com. Find us at APG Crew. We're all there. Find our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of the page. Interact with us in 280 characters or less. Your choice. And if you would like to be a little bit more verbose, head over to facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Lots of community interaction going on there. People sharing aviation related stories and events. And we're there too. So hope to see you on the social meds/social medias.
Yes.
Is it a plural thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
When you make it up, I guess you can make it
Sure.
whatever you want. Let's see. We're also on Slack, and Hillel is here to tell us about that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
All right. And also a big round of applause and thank you to our producer, Liz Piper in Toronto,
Thank you,
Ontario.
Liz.
And also thank you to all those who show up each and every week to be in our live audience when we record. Our great chat room people, very dedicated and definitely way below normal people that are hanging out.
Redefining the definition of normal.
Subpar.
Yeah. No, they're truly wonderful people.
They might be your neighbors too.
I know all
you
of
never
them.
know. Look out.
They're awesome. Anyway, you should subscribe or follow us on Twitter and Facebook and get the app. Oh, I forgot to mention that. We have an app on iOS and Google Play. And if you turn on the push notifications, I'm not sure if it's still working or not, but you can get notified when we're recording the show and when shows are released and all that kind of jazz. So if
your push notifications stop working, delete the app and then re-download it, because that seems to reset whatever.
Oh, okay.
Because that happens to mine.
Good stuff.
Not infrequently.
Okay. And but if you have a chance to join us while we're recording live, you should, because the folks that are in the chat room, even though I give them a bad time, are really great people, and they always have a good time regardless of what we're doing here on the show. And you should join them. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Talons, Douglas.
Cheers, y'all.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh, I forgot to mention Cinco de Quattro and Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Quattro, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Unfortunate. I need to go back and rewatch Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great episode.
That one was really good.
Yeah.
Cinco de Quattro. What?
Yeah. How do we get them to? Well, never mind. Probably too politically incorrect to talk about.
Definitely. Yes.
Probably.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us, and I'm feeling much better now. Whatever was upsetting my intestinal tract has settled down. which is good. And what else?
I don't know.
guess that's
I
it.
apologize again for my tardiness.
Oh, that's okay. You were here for most of it, I think.
Yeah, it was like
just a couple
45
of
minutes late.
news items. Yeah.
Hey, gotta put food on the table. I apologize for having to work for the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, we're
It
glad
is what it
you
is.
could make the show. And hopefully you'll make
Yeah.
the next one too. We're going to talk about that after we stop the broadcast, and we'll start working out what we're
Should I
going to
stop my
hold on, let's
recorder?
Oh, stop the recorders. Thank you, Steph. All right.
You need this one probably, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to need this one. So send it to me right away. Don't forget.
I'm doing it right now
Okay.
as we speak.
Excellent.
I am. What was that? Oh, the recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, recorder's off. Coming now.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and send yours too, Dana.
I gotta
And
figure
then
out
you
how
can
I
do
can
it.
do
What
that
episode number was this? I have
You can do
374?
do it the way we retransfer, Dana. That works fine. Episode 374.
It's not working so good actually.
Oh.
Last time I tried to send it, wouldn't go.
Really?
Yep. Let's see
Okay.
here. 'Cause it's too big.
Even for WeTransfer?
Yeah, it didn't like it. I'll try it though.
Yeah. What format are you recording in?
AAC.
Okay, that should be small enough to. That shouldn't be a
WeTransfer.
problem for WeTransfer. I think they let you do free for up to 200.
I'm sure it was something I was doing.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we'll figure it out.
I think what it was is they only allow you to do so much per month or something like that.
Oh. Well, I think you can do there are other services out there as well. You can you can
No, I
send it
don't
to
want to play the
Dropbox.
audio in iTunes.
What's that?
It's trying to play my audio that I just saved in iTunes. I
Oh.
don't want it to do that.
You don't want to hear that, do you?
Not really.
You can use Dropbox, or maybe not, because you said you didn't have an account for that anymore. You can use Google Drive. There are all kinds of different things. We can talk about it after. Oh, look. Apple Computer is calling me on my cell phone. I'm sure it's really Apple Computer.
I'm sure it is.
It might be, what's his face? That Dana met.
No, it's not, because I've
No.
gotten this just a few days ago. It's a scam, people. Apple Computer will not call you. Neither will Microsoft. And say, yeah, we noticed that there are some issues, some security issues with your machine. So let me have you.
What's your social security number
Yeah,
and your major credit card?
Exactly.
What's your birth date? And
I want this. Let me rename it here. Come on, really?
Anyway, well, while we're doing that, the live people probably don't need to hear all this. So thanks, everyone, for joining
Good
us on a
night.
Monday night, or whatever time of the day it is for you. And what is Richard saying? I want to share use 10 Google. Okay, so Hamish, Robert Fairbairn.
oh, speaking of meetups. Wow, I can't talk anymore. He met my brother.
Oh, really? Where?
Yeah,
In Salt Lake?
in Salt Lake.
Oh, nice. Just out of the blue?
No.
Oh, they coordinated.
Yeah, they were looking
Put 'em
for
together?
places to kill some time, so I pointed them in the direction of the bar my brother works at. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Your brothers are cool.
yeah, good people.
Okay. And so is Dick.
Yes.
All right. All right, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and hit the red stop broadcast button. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody,
guys.
for
Bye.
joining us. We'll see you in the social medias.